We should see, but that's okay.
No, that's where it should
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We can begin the meeting, please. Linelda, would you start with the roll call, please?
Commissioner Shoemaker,
Present.
Commissioner Gossick, Commissioner David, excuse me,
Present.
Commissioner Gossick Sideman,
Present.
and Mayor Hillman,
Present.
Town Manager Labadie,
Present.
Town Attorney Tercivia. Thank you.
If you would like, you can move up here where you have a, yes, you got promoted only for the day. Okay. Can't charge anymore though. Okay. Okay, and can we all rise, please, for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I know we have some adjustments on the agenda, so Linelda, if you would, please.
Yes, Vice Mayor Moore asked that the commission defer items 10B and C because she is not available to attend the meeting today.
Does anyone have any other adjustments on the agenda? If not, call for an approval on it.
I move we approve the agenda as adjusted.
Your second,
Second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Presentations and proclamations can be found on page 7, resolution number 2022-008, resolution of Town Commission of Town of Highland Beach, Florida, ratifying the selection, appointments, and term of office of members of the planning board and providing for an effective date. We have 2 applicants.
Mayor,
Yes,
could we do the Pledge of Allegiance real quick?
We just did.
yeah,
it.
we did it.
We did? Oh, we did. I'm bad today. Come on, sorry.
You're too young for that.
Okay, and Ms. Mirage, would you come up to the podium, please? We all have the recommendation from the chair of the committee, and we have your bio. So thank you, first of all, for serving on a previous board. We thank you for that. And if you'd like to say a few words first, and then we'll give each commissioner a chance to chat with you a little bit. Okay?
Okay, sounds good. Good afternoon. My name is Nevasita Mirage. I go by Nev. I reside at 1020 Bel Air Drive. I have lived in Highland Beach for 10 years with my husband and 2 children. I had the honor of serving on the Natural Resources Preservation Advisory Board for approximately 3.5 years, during which time I learned so much about the benefits and needs of our town from an environmental perspective. I hope to have the opportunity to use this gained knowledge and perspective to assist with future planning for our town.
Good, okay. We'll turn it over to John.
Yes, I have to admit, natural resource preservation is getting a whole lot of attention these days, certainly from us, and we will be doing more. Can you give me some idea of what lessons you could pass on to us from your time on the board?
I learned a lot about, I guess, the needs, the things that, I guess, from the perspective of the environment, that need to be addressed, but sometimes it's very difficult to. A lot of things take time, even though they're brought up during our meetings, during the Natural Resources Board meetings. We went over a lot of things. We learned, we had presentations of what we could be addressing, specifically the dune restoration projects that how a lot of the trash on, the things that trash on the beaches was brought up a lot. And we tried to find ways like one of the things that we accomplished, it took a little bit, but we were able to get the bucket trees and I believe people are using them. I actually saw people using them. So that was something that good came out of that. I know that there's research that's been done by our board members for the wake zone, the speeds that are on our intercoastal, and members of our board have actually, spoken to higher powers to try to get things addressed that are needed. But some things are above our heads and we can't, I know I'm being very general with what I'm bringing up, but I know that you probably are aware of the accidents that have happened in the last, couple years. And so I learned, there's a lot to be done that can be done and that things take time. But I think that if you just keep going and address, trying to address the issues and just moving forward and not stopping at when there are obstacles, that there are accomplishments that can be made.
Well, clearly you spending time on the board is important for the town. We certainly appreciate that commitment that you have to make. And so you've decided, obviously, to spend more time volunteering on the planning board. Can you just give me some idea as to why you've picked the planning board to follow?
The planning board, well, I thought that maybe I could contribute just from the things that I did learn being on the Natural Resources Board, just with planning the future projects that are upcoming that could affect the way our town develops in the future, like kind of keeping what is important from an environmental perspective, like the nature, the natural resources. I have to bring some of it with me, and to be, I'd like to help, make those decisions. This board,
Right.
the planning board actually makes decisions that stick, and it's not just an advisory board. And that was something that was attractive to me, that it, that there were actual decisions that could be made.
Yeah, we definitely know that there are a lot of people who would like to retain the culture and the current feel of Highland Beach. If we can retain that as much as possible going forward, but clearly we have to make improvements. One last question. You're a real estate broker as well?
Yes, I have my real estate license. I haven't been practicing real estate. I
Okay.
work more heavily in the, I'm a virtual executive assistant. So it's just a little bit more flexible for me to be able to, as a parent as well, that I mind my children. It allows me the flexibility because I can work from anywhere when but I would help anybody who needed help with, if they needed to purchase a home.
Well, again, I'm just going to say thank you for serving on the environmental board and for wanting to serve on the planning board. Whatever happens, we need you to go forward with us in a participatory way because we need your talent.
Yes, and that was another reasons I enjoy being a part of the boards of the town, because I enjoy being involved in the community here in Highland Beach. I mean, we've been here for 10 years. We don't plan on leaving. We love it here. And I want to make sure that the future of our town, maintains its beauty the way it is. It's like small town feel. But at the same time, yes, we do need to make those improvements of like older buildings and maybe just things that will make it better and stronger as we move forward. But, not too many crazy changes and additions and like big, skyscrapers and things like that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your time. Hassan?
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming down.
Good afternoon.
What exactly do you think you could bring to the planning board other than your background in ecological issues?
I think I could bring a fresh perspective, just somebody that care about our town. I want to live here for a long time, and I want it to maintain its beauty and its originality the way that it's been. I would give it my heart and soul, and I plan on whether I will always participate in this town and be a part of it and be a part of the community. It was when I first walked in here, I was surprised, but not so surprised that I feel like it's a family here because I'm so familiar with all the familiar faces that I'm able to greet, from the police department to the staff that work here in town hall. So it's a family thing for me. And when you care about your family, it's like you want the best for it.
Where do you see the town going? I mean, what would you like to see the direction, the planning for?
I would like to see improvements that would be beneficial in the respect, like for water levels, like maybe bringing everything to a little higher to accommodate for the rising waters. I think that's important. Just bringing things just a little bit more up to date in that respect, just so that for safety reasons and things like that. But I'd like to, for the future, I'd like to keep the town, that small town feel at the same time, but also make improvements like we have for the crossings to the beach and things like that, where it's safety for the residents too. So that I like it'd be nice to have, blinking sidewalk or, like the crosswalks and things like that. But that comes in time. And so that's what I see for our town. I don't want it to, I want it to stay small, but I know that Florida's had just a lot of people move in and things like that. So maybe adjustments need to be made to accommodate the growth. What those are, I think that we'll still have to kind of take it day by day and see, how that pans out. But we can start planning and thinking about how that will impact, that new wave of residents now, and how that will impact, the pressure on our town.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, hi, Nev. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you. Nice to see you. Some standard questions. You said you have your realty license. I wondered how much experience you have in building site plans, and how's your experience in reading them and interpreting them?
Not there. Well, I guess I've looked at a few. Not heavy. I'll be honest, but I've helped. I have in my executive assisting that I do. I've recently worked, one of my clients I was specifically picked to work with him. I'm an independent contractor. So I was matched up with this client. He's in heavy real estate in Africa and in the United States. And I helped him purchase a multifamily unit as not the realtor, but as his assistant. And we had to, look at the plan. It was an existing older building, but we also have to make improvements on that building because it's so old. So I've had the opportunity to help assist with that, look at plans. I've helped for new properties, like I've looked at plans actually to help my husband in purchasing property for business, and kind of like looking at a piece of land and working with an architect and somebody who draws up the plans to make sure that everything fits properly, whether there's enough parking, enough building space, enough green space, things like that. So I've had a little bit of background. I'm able to look at it and make suggestions and things like that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And are you able then to, understand the finer components of the plans, say for electrical and plumbing for the subs?
Yes, I think so. There was a meeting, and I'm sorry if it's a little bit off topic, but it might not be. There's a meeting. I have a property in Whitefish, Montana, and I just want to share this, I guess, is that I've watched their commission meetings, and I guess their meetings are structured a little bit different, but what was interesting to me in that meeting was that they have lakes and people want to build docks and things like that on the lake. And when I was watching their meeting, it was a recent meeting, and watching our last planning board meeting, there's so much similarities where you really do have to look at, pay attention to the docks, what the length of the docks and what people are really trying to do, because you have to look at the currents and how they affect it. And it's funny, in both of those meetings, they addressed the currents and how somebody's going to pull into that dock and how it's going to affect their neighbors. So I just thought I'd add that, and that I found that very interesting, and it was just something that I could relate to, and it makes a lot of sense that it's both are water communities, and that was something that was brought up. So I'd add that. Sorry.
It's okay. That's a cute story. Thank you for sharing that. What about the codes? We have quite an extensive book of codes and ordinances. Are you familiar with those outside of the natural resources related ones?
I'd have to review them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. And for things such as setbacks or looking at various components of a property when it's in the planning stages, there are times that one must make judgments that could be for or against someone they might know, since we're a small town, and that can be an interesting situation. So I wondered how you would handle that, if you would be able to. How would you handle that if you had to, say, challenge someone's plan, if you maybe didn't agree with it and you knew them, or even if you didn't know them, but they're obviously resident here?
I mean, I would have to do what's best for the space, what they're trying to build, what is it that you're doing? It does, whether we're friends or not, that's not something that it can't take into account in a serious decision like that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your time and
Yeah.
for sharing your time with us, with your family back home. Appreciate it.
Okay.
That's it for me, Mayor. Thank you.
You stole most of my questions. Okay. They're all right here. Good answers, by the way. Thank you. I just have a couple of more. Are you familiar with seawall construction?
To what? To what?
How they're built, how seawalls are built?
I've seen them built in the
Okay.
neighborhood, but I mean, as far as the intricacies, I mean, I would probably have to research it more.
Okay, that's something that's definitely coming up on our radar screen. That was the only reason
I'm
for that
sure.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, I know it from neighbors talking about seeing it, seeing what's been done, and but yeah, I would research it.
Yeah, that's definitely on our radar screen. Will be coming up in the next probably couple of years. The whole thing on structural issues and architecture, et cetera. I was going to go into that, to discuss that at length already. Zoning, et cetera. That's obviously something that comes up all the time for this board to wrestle with.
Right.
You'll have to get up to speed on that, obviously. But most of the questions have already been asked, so I don't know what else to go into. So do you have any questions of us?
Well, after hearing your questions, I see that, I guess it's more of a comment. I see that's a very serious position. Not that I didn't think it was, but especially a position that's making decisions for the town and how it's going to turn out. So I appreciate your questions, actually, because it really gets me to kind of hone in on what more of what this position entails and what's needed on this board. So I guess it's more of a comment.
Okay. Well, thank you. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Let's
Commissioners.
move on.
I appreciate your time.
You betcha. Mr. Tanowski, come on. Yes, sir. You're up. Same drill. If you'd like to say a few words about yourself and why you're interested in the position, and then we'll run it by all of the commissioners.
Well, probably the best place for me to start. Been retired for 2 years. I'm a Bostonian. I park my car in Harvard Yard, if you can't tell. Been down here for a couple of years now. I was the president of the Interface Group, which is in my resume, in out of Las Vegas, and out of Boston. Very familiar with the topics that are coming up right now. I was instrumental in building a 1 million square foot convention center in Las Vegas. We were competing against the public sector at that time, which was losing about $20 million a year. The first year after being built, we made a profit of about $10 million. Understand the questions that are being asked as far as codes and things of that nature. Presently, I'm the president of the Coronado Association right here in Highland Beach. As I stated, I've been living here for 2 years, and I find Highland Beach a well-kept secret.
We like it that way.
Correct. As I look at volunteerism around the country, it's down considerably. I'm still very, very active in a number of groups, and I feel my greatest asset is replacing myself as many times as possible. I find I do develop followings, and recruiting right now, I think, should be at an all-time high because the world is changing and we're looking at a lot of new people to take on volunteer positions. And my purpose in being here is to look at the planning board as another volunteer position, which I feel would be wonderful on my resume as I turn 90 in the next few years. With that said, I'm open to any questions you have.
Take it away, John.
Very good, Jason. As you know, first time we met was at the president's, what was it, coffee that we had with the mayor and of the presidents of the condominiums that showed up. And so we had a chance to talk quite a bit. So I understand some of your background, doing multi-million-dollar construction projects, doing Comdex in support of that. In the high technology world, I spent some time at Comdex. I understand exactly what you've done. Well, to some degree, at least as a customer, as a user. And also I'm from Boston. So I can relate to your accent. No, I think the questions I have really are, since you've been president of the Coronado, first, what is the single biggest concern right now from not only the Coronado, but from other other condominium presidents that you'd like to share with us?
I think one word, apathy. I think what we're seeing a lot right now, our investors coming down to Florida, they're not living here for 12 months, trying to get them actively involved in the decision-making process. You know, we're going through certification right now. I realize we're early, but I think that looking at the attitudes, it's not a matter of aptitude any longer. It's more of an attitude. And I see the people that are coming down right now want to enjoy themselves. We're not a hotel. You know, we're an association trying to service the needs. Question that was asked, why do I think it's important? I have a fiduciary responsibility, which was a question that was asked by Ms. Seidman as far as how do you look at your responsibility if you had to make a decision? Well, a residential association is surely different than many of the associations I've been president of. I'm dealing with varied personalities. I understand vested interest. I seem to cut through the politics, But again, I have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that the decision is made to move forward. And unfortunately, apathy is involved in a lot of those decisions right now.
I happen to agree with you quite a bit, because even in this last election, when you have apathy from those who are registered voters, and they wait until the last minute and maybe catch some notions that are not accurate or complete, it creates a problem where apathy leads to ignorance, that leads to poor decision-making, whether it's on what to vote, understanding what the issues are, that sort of thing. And it affects everybody in the town. So it is a problem. And it's going to become more of a problem when we have disconnected, disinterested investors who are only looking at the return. So couldn't agree with you more. Let me switch. Now, from the experience and exposure you've had, direct and indirect, with what we've been doing here and with the town and what you've had to interact with various departments at the town, what are your comments about the town's performance and issues?
My greatest fear is always when growth stops, decay begins. And I feel that's the greatest challenge for Highland Beach and other organizations and other towns, that how do you continue the growth and build upon the shoulders of the efforts of the past? And I feel that's going to be a challenge, not just for Highland Beach, but as I see the world changing right now, I live by that. When growth stops, decay begins. And I think you have to sit back and say to ourselves, are we asking the right questions? Are we good listeners? And are we able to make the right decisions? I've heard the comments from many people that we want to keep Highland Beach warm and cuddly in the same atmosphere. But I think with looking at the investors that are coming down here across the 4-mile strip and seeing the demographic change in age that's coming down right now, the last 30 residential condos that were sold at Coronado were between 59 and 62 years of age. That's a different demographic. And the prices that they're spending right now across Highland Beach are higher than ever before. So the demand for more is increasing dramatically. And I see it in an association like the Coronado. As I talk to my peers and ask questions to them, they're telling me, Jason, the demands upon us in the next 5 years are going to be greater than ever before, because they expect more for the prices that they're paying. I feel Highland Beach is going to probably experience a very similar situation.
One last question.
That's happening in every building.
Oh, yeah.
One second. Quick, let me just go back. When we upgraded our building, the fellow that I was working with to do it, we said before we did it, the complexion of the building is going to change. It's going to attract different people. And what happened was the property values went up 40%. We knew it was going to go up. We didn't think that high.
That's for sure.
But we knew we were going to attract younger, more affluent residents, which is exactly what happened. And what you're saying is happening now is precisely what happened to us when we upgraded our building. And now it's happening again. Exactly what you're saying. It's happening throughout our town. And the new people that are buying in are requiring upgraded amenities. And before you know it, every building's people are going to want towels on the beach, and they're going to want more stewards. More and more.
And I
So the
think-
town is going to change.
And that affects the town. Are we equipped? Are we equipped to actually solve some of these? We are solution providers. When someone walks in with their presentation, we're the solution provider. We're the doctor giving the remedy. And are we equipped right now to be able to handle this influx of new personalities, financial personalities? And if there's a need there and there's a desire there and there's an affordability there, are we equipped to handle all three of those areas? And that remains to be seen.
Well, we're way off the subject. It's not on our agenda, so we'll make one comment, then we have to move on. We have to determine how much of those desires we want to attach ourselves to. And that's the difficult part.
I agree.
So lot to think about. Let's move on though, okay?
I agree with you.
Okay, and I'm just going to have one more question, which is, as you look at and gather input from those in your condominium complex or others, is there any specific area that's of particular interest in the way of improvements for the town?
Repeat the question again, John.
Okay, as in your interactions, both at the Coronado and elsewhere in Highland Beach, is there any specific particular improvement that you hear more often that you could share with us?
Yeah, I'm in the people business. I mean, you can qualify it any way you want, hotels, conventions. I really believe we're in the business right now of recruiting people who understand volunteerism, who understand the community, who want to play a much greater part in it to make things happen. I'm a believer that no man is an island, no woman is an island. And I think that it's in our best interest to find the brightest and the best to surround ourselves with. My own success has come by recruiting the best and brightest I can find. And as I talk to many, I've said this to the mayor and other people here, Highland Beach has some very, very, very bright people of all different categories. And I would love to see more of those people become an active participant in the growth of Highland Beach. That would be one of my personal goals, to find and recruit the brightest and the best.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I find the same thing in my building, but I also find, in addition to people being a little younger, young being relative, of course, we have more people now who are full-time residents than ever before, probably because of the taxes in the Northeast, that even if they don't stay all year, they're finagling so that they're there over 6 months. But I also don't see those people having the same interest as a true year-round resident does. And I think one of our biggest issues on this commission is getting some of these very qualified people to step up, to come and help, to give us their expertise. If you have a goal for this town where the direction you would like to see it moving in, where would you, give me examples of where you would like to see it go?
It's a great question. And I'll talk from my own experience, the ensuing, bringing up the topic about how many people are living down here. I can't wait for the season to end. That's number one. And in doing so, I work with a very, very nice group of volunteers as president of the association, but I'm waiting for everyone to leave so I can bring together the full-time residents, which has never been done, at least at the Coronado, to get their feeling of what they observed these past 6 months, because they've never had a voice, because it's always been the board and some of the recipients from some of the comments from residents. What I would like to see is a more cooperative movement between the residents of Highland Beach, and have maybe a better understanding of the direction that the mayor and other people want to put forth. And what I was able to witness in this last series of elections, if you want to call it that, and decisions to be made, was very similar to what took place in my own association. Vested interests, not looking out for the town or looking out for the association themselves, and too much personal debate. And I feel that would hurt. So I would like to see less personal debate and more focused on the policies and the issues. If we are really solution providers, we're not solution providers to fix an argument between two residents. We're solution providers to actually take care of what our growth is going to be as a community. And I'd like to see us get back as close to that as possible without having interference. As an elected official of a condominium association, I need the empowerment with my team to make decisions. I'd like to see the same thing move forward as far as Highland Beach.
You have a situation where you have maybe 5% of the population who are loud and vocal,
Yes.
claiming to represent everyone.
Yes.
How do you deal with that?
I don't want to get into marketing because I know you had plenty of that in this last go around. I found that, and I made a comment that having over 4,000 residents that are down here full-time and having a vote between 1,400 and 1,600, a lot of people told me that was pretty good for Highland Beach. I had trouble accepting that myself personally. Now, they might be correct. So as a neophyte for 2 years in Highland Beach, but I felt that reaching out to the community and get more participation from the people that live here in our association, a no vote is not to vote is a no vote.
Right.
Yeah, I find that a little bit ugly in many ways because I don't really feel that gives you the sense. And to have a small percentage of people be able to actually dictate a majority situation, I find very unfair. But that's my personal opinion. And I would like to see that changed.
I agree with you, and
You have a.
you're right. It's in a building, it's in the town, it's a lot of places. I don't think I have anything else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Hello, Jason. Thanks for coming out this afternoon. I presume you, pardon me, I've been losing my voice lately. I presume you know all about blueprints and plans and plumbing and electrical with your experience. So I don't need to ask about that. And I wondered, how familiar are you with our codes or state laws or both?
Well, because of our certification, not just myself, but my entire team has brought themselves up to speed, whether they're going to be involved in community service or not. And we're still going over the codes and everything else because just on the certification program, the way the state has changed things over the last 3 or 4 weeks has changed some of the decisions that we've made. So we become quite familiar with it.
Got it, understood. I know it's a lot there. And wanted to ask about your ability to render a judgment or an opinion if you know the person or you know that they're a resident of Highland Beach, a small town. How do you handle that?
I take the fiduciary responsibility very seriously. It's been part of my my livelihood my entire life. And I think it's good to say we've come to Florida to meet many new friends. And I do agree with that. And I myself and my wife have met many, many new friends. But I separate that from the business decisions that we have to make. And I would say that's probably one of the easiest ones for me. I separate friendship from making a business decision.
Got it. And lastly, I wonder if you have any other thoughts on ours being a unique town in some ways with having full-time residents and seasonal snowbirds, part-time, whatever you want to call it, of varying degrees. Do you see any other ways of handling that? In other words, in the summer, if something comes up, half the residents aren't here, and miss the food trucks when we have them later on in the year. Everyone wants another food truck. That's all I hear. But what is your opinion on that?
As I stated to some residents this past week, I ran Canyon Ranch in Las Vegas at the Venetian.
Oh.
A lot of people like to believe that coming down to Highland Beach is Canyon Ranch in the water. And for some of the people that come down for a couple of months, they feel that way. But I think it's a misnomer. The beautification might remind them of Canyon Ranch, but the responsibility that we have right now to the residents, ownership is not enough. It's not enough to actually take care of your property. And as I witnessed this myself with my peers, other association presidents, I feel the most important thing we can do right now is to explain through our own communication and our documentation what the responsibility is as a person comes down here for 6 months. And people who are down here for 12 months definitely do look at the property differently. Their pride in the way they handle things, the way they give out fobs and things of that nature. So I feel it's our communication. Are we able to communicate this to the masses? And I really believe At this point, I'd rather service and cater to the masses as far as communication than a small group of individuals that might have loud mouths.
Got it. I appreciate that. And that's it for me. Thank you again.
Hi, Jason.
Thank you.
Let's vote. All in favor, say yes. No. John? Yes, John?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Welcome aboard. Okay.
So
Um,
for the record, the motion is to
we
approve
need-
resolution
yeah,
number
got it.
20.
We need a motion.
I move that we approve resolution number 2022-008 and naming Jason Chudnovsky to the planning board.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Officially welcome aboard. And we thank you for offering your time to serve. You and I have chatted about that a number of times and very pleased that you took us up on it. Okay,
Mayor, may I clarify the record? Just for the record, his term expires April 19th, 2024. The resolution had 2023 on it. So I just
thank
said-
you.
yeah.
Okay, well done. Okay, let's move on. Board vacancies, Natural Resources Preservation Advisory Board, there's one vacancy for an unexpired term ending April 30, 2024. Meetings and events. May 3rd, 1:30 Town Commission meeting, May 4th, 1 o'clock Natural Resources Preservation Board regular meeting, May 5th, 2 o'clock Financial Advisory Board regular meeting, May 10th, 1 o'clock Code Enforcement, May 12th, 9:30 Planning Board meeting. Jason, you got that one? You're going to be available? Okay. No board action reports. Page 26 is a board ordinance, an ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Highland Beach, Florida, adopting the current edition of the Florida Fire Prevention Code and providing for local amendments, providing for repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability and codification, and providing for an effective date. We will turn that over to Marshall.
Before we do this, just to make sure I've had a run here today. Do we miss public comment?
Oh, we did. I'm so sorry.
Okay, I just want to make sure because
So,
I was in
yes,
a
we
bad
did.
run here. So I
No, you're right.
okay.
That we-
Yep, public comments.
Allegiance, here we go.
I don't have a list of individuals. Is there anybody here for public comments?
All right. good.
There is not. Public comments are now closed. Now, we'll turn it over.
Good afternoon, Teresa Cuevas with the Town Manager's Office. As another step in the implementation of the Fire Rescue Department, we are preparing all the documentation necessary to submit for the county COPCN license, which is the Certificate of Public Necessity and Convenience. So as another step in the process, today before you is the first read of the ordinance adopting the Florida Fire Prevention Code. As a little background, the state fire marshal adopts the code every 3 years, similar to the building department, the building code. The fire marshal adopts the code, which establishes the statewide minimum fire safety code and incorporates Florida's additions of the National Fire Protection Association's fire code and the life safety code. The Florida statutes allows for local governments to adopt more stringent laws than the minimum safety code. So with that, today we're presenting the local amendments that will be applicable to the town of Highland Beach. Upon discussion and passage of the first reading, the ordinance will be properly advertised for final adoption and second reading on May 17th. And any technical questions that you may have, I'm going to defer that to the fire consultant, Glenn Joseph, and the building official, Jeff Reedmus.
John, start with you.
Okay, well, I got a few. Because I've not read the fire prevention code for the county, I went through every single page, every paragraph. So there's a few questions that come up. One is the Knox box. What happens when a condominium has not given you all the keys for the Knox box? And I don't see necessarily that listed on our fees.
Len Joseph, I'm the fire consultant. The Knox box is a good question. Just for your background, Knox box is the ability for emergency responders to enter a building outside of normal operating hours, whether it's a commercial building or in the middle of the night. And it's a unique key that only the fire department has. And there's a box on the console or near the front entrance that we have that key. We could open it up and get access to the building or at some inconvenient hour. There is no necessarily a fee for the box, installation of the box, but the owner of the building will have to pay for the box installation. But we don't charge a fee to maintain the stuff. Now, if they don't have the right keys, that's where the fire marshal or the fire chief or somebody from the fire department will actually come in and talk to the owner or occupant and have them add the keys to the building. And that's another reason why we do annual inspections, because every year the fire prevention person goes in and tests all the keys to make sure they're there. It's not usually a deliberate attempt to circumvent the process. It's usually just oversight. Because to get access to the Knox box, the owner of the building has to call the fire department and make an appointment to have that box open for them. And then they could update the keys in there and it just fall by the wayside. And that's another reason why we do annual inspection.
So you need a number of keys in this Knox box for
That's
the
correct.
facility, especially if you have a 200 unit condominium or whatever.
Well, there would not be their key for the individual units, only
Right,
for
no.
the public areas and emergency operations. Like,
Public common areas that you need
Yeah,
access
exactly.
to and that sort of thing. So if keys are missing, it's a problem,
Except the fire department.
yes,
right?
it would be a problem.
Has that happened lately? Do you know of the history in Highland Beach?
I don't have a personal history of the keys being gone missing now.
Okay, so then my thought is thinking worst case, if the key is missing, even though you've had an inspection, there should be a penalty for that, no?
Yes and no. Like I said, usually when a key is missing or the old keys in the Knox box, it's generally an oversight. So what we do is we have the fire marshal go down there and check, we do during our annual inspections to make sure the keys are operating. If they're not operating, we encourage them to get a new key, and then we come back to the site because they don't have access to the Knox box. Only the fire department has access to the Knox box. So the only way it could be a problem for us is if we, in our fiduciary responsibility to protect those keys, lose one of those keys. Then that would be a major issue because then anybody that has that key would have access to every Knox box in the town. So that's got on us as a city and the authority having jurisdiction to maintain the sanctity of those keys.
And when a new structure is built that is considered common and needs a key, then they have to update you before the next inspection so that you can put the key in the box.
Part of the certificate of occupancy, if there's a Knox box needed, they'll have installed a Knox box. They'll have it keyed with a local locksmith that we have a contract with to the correct key. And then that key would go to the fire department. So that's part of the certificate of occupancy.
So none of this applies to single family homes and townhouses.
No, no.
But for
High rise condominiums,
which I understand,
large
high
structure.
rise is considered 700.
75 feet and above.
Yeah, 75 feet and above. All right, next question, it's fireworks. Do we have a fireworks problem in this town?
That was a large discussion when we were coming up with the fire prevention code that we don't usually do fireworks. But there are people that have birthday parties and that they want to maybe have a firework display for that birthday party or for that special event. And it would be prudent to have a process for them to have access to do those permits and we could go through the permit process. So we could actually look at the time of the year, whether it's dry or not dry, can they burn, public burning? Is it a safe discharge? Can we put it in a place? Can it be done safely? And then issue a permit based on that recommendation from the Fire Prevention Bureau, Fire Marshal's office.
Standpipes. Is that an additional hydrant when you have a standpipe, say required next to a pier?
Okay, so because of a standpipe is essentially like a fire hydrant, only for a remote location. So if you have a fire hydrant in front of your building, that's to provide water for fire suppression activities inside that building. In a pier, because of our unique situation with the amount of resources for fire suppression that we have, it is prudent to have access to a water supply close to where the high valued vessels are located. Because usually if a boat's on fire, it is largely unlikely, it can happen, but it's usually unlikely that we will be able to suppress that fire and save the boat. What we're trying to do is actually save the vessels next to that
Right.
on fire situation,
Absolutely.
so we don't spread the fire across the entire pier. So having access to a large or sufficient volume of water close to the incident expedites the suppression efforts because we don't have to run hoses all the way down there.
So I know that there are some condominiums that don't have, a standpipe close to the pier.
We've also discussed that in the process of developing this document. If generally that is for, and Mr. Remus will probably have to join in here, but any major renovations to that pier system, where they're doing more than 50% of the pier that's renovated, we'll have them bring it up to the new construction standard.
Okay.
But if it's not already in existence, we're not going to mandate its existence until they do some renovations to actually require that, bringing the entire structure or structures to current code. Correct me if I'm wrong. He is nodding yes. So, for the record, it's Lenelda.
So as I understand it, in a brief conversation we had, when I looked at the schedule of fees, I went down and immediately said, wait a minute, I don't see any fee here for fire inspections. And I know that we've been penalized by Del Rey Fire for annual inspections. And I assume then there's been some decision to not charge for fire inspections for any condominium in the town of Highland Beach. Is that correct?
That's coming up next. We have a whole discussion on fees coming up.
We have a-
Oh,
Yep.
okay. And I'll defer. that
Only-
question.
Only consideration is condos that are on the beach side. The ones on the west side is a whole different situation.
Okay. Obviously, there's conversation that I have not been part of, so east meets west. Okay.
It's a good answer, man.
We'll deal with fees next, okay?
Okay, so last question then is on, let's go back to docks and piers. Electrical service to those piers also require building department approval, but does the fire department get involved in electrical service to the piers and docks and so forth? No?
No, sir. That's the building department that they do. He's the building official will actually make those designations.
Okay.
And if
So-
he needs input from the fire marshal, they'll ask for it, but generally he has the last word on.
So
the
if there's a
installation.
fire that was caused by, electrical issues at a pier, again, that's
We would-
just after action for you.
We would do an origin cause assessment of the fire and then determine what caused the fire and then what to do to prevent future fires of that same kind. And that would work with the building department to get that done.
And so the only fires we've had in Highland Beach, for the most part, kitchen fires and generators. Is that fair?
I don't have the history of the Highland Beach Fire Department, but I'm sure the manager could probably.
The
speak to it.
two fires we've had over the last 5 years, so, we've had a couple of smoked out generators. And then we've had a couple small, I think we had a garbage fire in a garage, and then we had a couple kitchen fires, little grease fires. That's it.
That's it. Okay.
No
That's-
loss to value outside of a small, garage thing. But
Around the country, that's it. 60% of your fires occur in the kitchen. So that's consistent with the national.
And I'm
Statistics.
sorry, I should ask one more question.
Sure.
Have you personally visited some of these condominiums to understand the status?
No, I have not,
Okay.
but I can if the manager manager needs me to, I can do that.
Well, my suggestion would be, you got to take some of the biggest buildings we have and take a look at them as well as maybe some of the older ones. I mean, we've got a condominium down the road here in Highland Beach that it's shocking to see the level of deterioration that's going through a major renovation, about probably 10 years too late. But, so I worry about the older ones immediately, and that's part of configuration, yes, but, or certification, but I'm not sure we should not wait and have someone like you do a double take on. As
Well-
well as if anything ever happened, God forbid.
As goes to structural integrity of the building, that would be the building department, the building official's
Right.
responsibility.
No, from a fire hazard.
From the fire hazard point of view, yes, that would be an appropriate thing to do, is do a risk assessment. I have requested information from the current authority having jurisdiction, and I have not received that information yet as far as the level of risk in the building. Which ones are sprinkled, which ones are not sprinkled, partially sprinkled, that's not been made available yet.
Del Rey has all that information. We're just trying to get it from him.
Okay, I have to admit, I also learned, and this is now a statement, I've learned about the fire watch and the chart. I really did not realize the planning and the response required for a fire watch even. So reviewing all the pages of this is very enlightening. I almost wonder, it's too bad that we need to have every condominium president have this to understand what's of concern from a fire standpoint, because, you know, in the end, they're the ones that really have to communicate to their residents what's going on here. And this is just county, right? I mean, we're adopting.
This is the town of Highland Beach. Now, the point of, like I was talking to Assistant City Manager, Ms. Cuevas recently, in that the initiative for a fire department within your town gives you that level of control over what is propagated through your city, through your town, which means that public education is an essential part of effective fire safety. And that publication becomes involved in involving the residents in the principles, the ordinances, and the structures associated with protecting their own self-interest and their property. And so that's a huge, huge part of why it is advantageous, if you will, to have your fire department local under your jurisdiction.
Perhaps we should add that to the agenda of the next president's meeting.
Exactly. Because if we start at the presidents and we go to the communities, we
Well,
can go to the condos.
I mean, it's a place to start it at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
Understand, one more comment, is that this document will not take effect until 2024. Because right now, because you're contracted with Del Rey for your fire protection, fire suppression, their ordinances essentially are
Right.
they are the authority having jurisdiction, and we can't have two ordinances controlling the same area. So one has to sunset before one is implemented.
No, we'll set it up as this is what it will be.
Yeah.
That's all.
And what
But
they should
the
know.
information is valid to begin
Yeah,
with.
yeah. Before and after, much of this is what they should know anyway.
And it was
Yeah.
it was predicated in your decision to
Yeah,
move in this
John, if
direction,
you-
that this was going to be a primary role for our
If
local.
you look at the last, it says the effective date, the ordinance shall become effective 45 days prior to the town's fire
Okay.
rescue becoming operational.
You're ahead
So
of my,
it's-
that was my one question.
So it's
Why?
already in there.
How can it be effective 45 days ahead if we don't, before we take over? So how can it be?
There'll be
effective?
a crossover and we'll need implementation time to get it in place and curated and ready to go. So we want a little bit of time. So it's not right on the day we're start rolling it out. We want to have preparation time. And then we'll talk about that during fire implementation. There's a lot of that we want to make sure we have things in place prior to the actual start date rather than at the start date. So this would be one of the last pieces for that fire captain to embrace and fully understand and start rolling out to the community before we go live.
That makes sense. Okay, thanks. Are you, anything? Evelyn, you done, John?
Yes, I'm done. Thank you.
Ev?
Hi, Glenn. In Exhibit A, the general fire code, are there substantial differences in this than there are in the state code?
Okay, so yeah, it's a good question. Very good question, actually. So the state code is the minimum standard throughout the state. Okay, and it's only officiated and enforced by the state fire marshal. So what this ordinance does for you locally is allows the fire department, your local fire department, to enforce not only the state code, but your code. And we kept anything that was consistent and a duplicate of the state with very few exceptions. We took out of the local ordinance because it was redundant. The only things that we maintained in there was things that we thought need to be reiterated, number one, and just a few of those. And for the most part, anything that's above and beyond what the state requires. So if it's in there, it's probably above what the state requires. And there are other things like tarring a roof. I thought it would be necessary to keep that in the local code because there's a lot of fires and hazards that come from tarring and roof and doing roof work with heat especially. So having a permit locally for the inspector to go take a look at that before the work begins, to me was critical to making sure it's a safe operation. Whereas most other stuff that was the same language as in the state, we removed it and relied on the state document for that support.
Okay. Permits for fires on the beach. I mean, and fireworks too, because very often what people will do is if they're on the intercoastal side, they'll set off the fireworks from a boat in the water. I'm not quite sure how we would deal with that.
So we had some discussion about that too in the meetings moving up to this document. And again, it's very rare that you would have fires on the beach, but if you do have somebody who wants to have a fire on the beach, you should have a process for them to get permitted to do that. Okay, so we would go out there and take a look at what they're putting the fire in. Is it safe, spark arresters, those kind of things. Now, if somebody goes out there in a UL approved bin that is for open fires, it's unlikely that you'll even know about it to enforce it. But if somebody has a big party on the ocean, they want to put a bonfire together, which is rare, it may not ever happen. But if that happens, you don't want to have to scramble to create a permitting process to make that happen. You want to have something in place that allows you to permit it. That way you could actually create a framework for them to do it safely.
Yeah, that was part of my other part of that was, how would we know until it was already over?
Usually if there's a huge gathering, but there's a party on the beach or some gathering, something like that, they would actually probably reach out to you and see if they want to build a bonfire. They're building a small fire on the beach in a UL approved container. It's unlikely that you even want to permit that. But if you have a huge bonfire, like they do in FAU, they used to do that once a year, they have a 10-foot bonfire and they want to make the celebration of life and whatever, then you probably want to have a process to address that if it comes up.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Hello, Glenn.
How you doing?
Two things. One is there was one other fire that I personally can speak of because it was next door to my house. And this actually crosses over to the building department. Happened before Mr. Reed, Mr. Marshall were here. A contractor severed a propane tank that was buried and unknown to be there, caught fire, answered the call, turned off the electric to my house, jumped the fence. The two cats were locked inside and my house filled with propane. The road was shut down for a good 4 hours. The reason I ask is I don't know if we ever fully addressed that. It just came to mind now that we impose maybe more strict requirements on 811 before digging, A, and B, if we have, I was told at the time that there were 3 propane companies in Florida and no one really kept track of where the tanks were. And so just want to present this as maybe we have other tanks buried, and do you have any recommendation or any experience in this area?
So that is not an unusual situation because back in the day, there was not very well, records were not kept very well.
Right.
In
what
fact, we have a lot of lines
told.
in my old department that were from the 70s and 60s, and we don't even know where they are. And usually when you go digging, you find them and then you cap them off and you put that in the line. And up until recently, the service providers for gas were very reluctant to give you any historical data on their buried lines for terrorism and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, it's a sticky situation. But if somebody breaks into a line or digs into a tank that's buried, that's an emergency response. And if you look at the code, there's fees that we could get town to be reimbursed for any costs associated with an emergency response associated with hazardous materials. So if there's a spiller or somebody that spilled it on the road or an underground tank that belongs to, say, whoever the utilities company is, and they would dig it up, it was unknown that it was there was no permits for it, then that becomes a hazardous material response. We get the regional hazmat team to put it together, and then any cost to the town and to you can be reimbursed, reincorporated through the fire prevention code. If you see the last section is about hazmat collecting for hazardous material spills. So that's
It
what-
may
Right, I
be
saw that.
rare, but as the chief knows, about a year ago, we had a main line that was
Absolutely.
split on
Happens
the road
regularly.
off of A1A, and the clouds of gas coming out was unbelievable. But I guess, that is an ongoing issue. Any type of gas leak would be a huge problem. I guess not to jump all over you, but do we have any other exposure, like at the big water plant that we have when it comes to?
That would be a water plant type situation. I know some of the chemicals they keep, and some of them can be a little bit aggressive, but that's for the utilities operators to basically brief you on. I don't know what they are because I haven't seen the inventory yet.
Thank you. So going back to my question, is there a way we could or should be more strict with the 811, which actually, I think it's this month is underground utilities call before you dig month or something I saw. So do you have any? Because there are numerous, just to add that there were numerous tanks buried in the older built on lots in Highland Beach.
The way we could probably address that, and this is thinking out of the box here, is through
Yeah.
the permitting process. And that would be when somebody pulls a permit for construction, and that we then go through a process, we develop a process that they could look at. Another, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
And I'll add that upon further looking at this lot, a second tank was discovered when they did bring in the underground, the sonar.
Jeffrey Miss Building Official, Town of Highland Beach. So there's no way to know what exists unless people were to get all of their yards scanned. So,
Right.
but by today's standards, or what I can tell you is that every single propane tank that gets installed in Highland Beach, thanks to Ingrid Allen and myself, we know exactly where they're going to be because we make them put them on the drawing. So now we know exactly where they're at. And the Florida Building Code, the plumbing section also covers fuel gas, which covers propane, covers all of the requirements for that. The FEMA covers the issue on how we anchor them down. And the NFPA, which stands for the National Fire Protection Agency, has an entire book just on propane. I forget which number it is. There's like NFPA 1 through 6,000 at this point. Is it 3,000?
Okay.
Yeah, but
Great.
anyway, so for now, everything is covered, from 2-3 years ago moving forward. What happened in the past, we can't control, but everyone is required to have, to call 911 dig, and that is the responsibility of the contractor.
Got it. Thank you very much. Thank you. This just brought to mind when this came up, that this occurred 5 years ago. Second question, I believe, how do we handle fire hydrants which are not maintained and owned by the town? Aren't there a few at different residential locations? And how does that figure in?
Yes, there are a handful, those that are outside of any easements or outside of the right of way, those exist and are maintained by the condos themselves. We do have a various number. I'd have to have Pat here to tell you the exact number. We do require that they do annual inspections of their own, and then they submit to us that they exercise the valves, it's got capacity, things aren't broken. So we do know that, have an inventory of them, and then that's something that would be important, of course. Once we resume control, we would know where they're at for firefighting, this and that. And if at any point in time, it's something we could cross with that, and it's, Pat and I've had these conversations, since we don't have easements, we could draft up blanket easements whereby they would grant us some level of access to maintain them on their part. So that way we do have some control over those items and not just leave it to them to take care of. Maybe we assume it's a small town, right? We should probably take control of everything.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. We can address that going forward. I guess it's not for
That
today,
would be
but I
also
know
be
they
a part of the
exist.
annual inspections process. So they
Got
have to provide a documentation that have been tested to the inspector that comes there on an annual basis, so we could keep the records up to date.
Got it. Would it behoove us to sort of incorporate that with our functioning of the other hydrants? Would it really be an asset?
It would be good to have control of them, yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you very much. That's it for me. Thank you for all your hard work. I appreciate
And
it.
Commissioner
greatly.
Gossett Simon.
Yes, sir.
In addition, the condos I know are responsible for maintenance of the hydrants. That means, rust, painting, and protection, so that they're not hit.
And what about water hookup? That hooks right up to the
Well,
town
they're
water.
tested. They
That
have to
there
be
would be
tested.
in
Yeah.
control. Okay, thank you very much. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, we talked about the hydrants, I don't know, a year ago, whenever the heck it was, and we definitely should do that. So it should go on some kind of a reminder and get that taken care of. Okay. Covered everything I had, and I didn't have any questions. So we need a motion to accept this. I don't think there were any changes on it. So without changes for the first read,
I move we accept the proposed Highland Beach Fire Rescue Ordinance.
for a second,
I second.
all in favor, just say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Well done. Okay, into unfinished business, fire rescue updates.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. So fire code, that was one of them. We just took care of that introductory read. We'll get to the fire fees. We'll also get to CM at risk for the construction of the new fire station. That's going to come up here in a moment. So we'll table that. We're working hard, as Tricia kind of stated, and the fire code is one of those elements, getting the COCPN or PCN documents together. We've been warehousing those as they come in. Tom McCarthy, our other consultant on the EMS side, has been giving us all of those items. We also have the new rescue unit and all of the apparatus and equipment, power lifts and all that stuff in queue. So we'll be making that order shortly. So we're moving forward with the commissioner's recommendation for the type. What type is it? A 3, 2, 1? Type 1. See, thank God he's here. So a type 1. So we're moving forward in that direction. We're clarifying a few of the specifications. We're having a little bit of conversation, paint versus wraps, things of that nature. But all that is moving in place, along with procuring all of the EKGs, job descriptions, and the like. So all of those behind the scene things are going on. We're on top of it. I think we probably have about 80% of the documents in place at this point. I know Glenn is working with the county on some other items related to maintenance of apparatus. If the county will help us with our 4 pieces, doing some maintenance contract with us. And then also working with the new EMS coordinator for the county on ensuring that our pilot program is effective or comprehensive enough, or gives us the flexibility to move forward. So there's a few items there, but those are going well. We're still looking into the forensic side of it. That has not been forgotten. It's just assembling and doing a lot of behind the scenes accounting work, and that's coming into play as well. Other than that, we're moving and progressing as we had hoped. You're seeing some of the bigger stuff here. We canceled those 2. So right after we talk about marine accessory structures, we'll get into the CM at risk, you're getting your approval for us to go into negotiations. And that's going to be the next really big piece, is the fire station, temp station in the front, coordinating those items and building the best building we can for the price that the dollars that we've allocated for it. So other than that, I can answer any questions, but we're moving and progressing.
John, got anything?
No, I'm good.
Evelyn? Any questions?
I do not see a doghouse for the upcoming Dalmatian listed.
So
It
the
has
gentleman
been
in the
left
room will
off
make
of the
sure
plan.
we have that. But yes,
That's not in the budget. We may have to get contributions for that.
I've been
Okay.
asking for that. Well, please
And
add it.
that brings to one quick addition. We will slowly look at that. We've had very, very preliminary conversations, but I know that people within the community want to be part of this as we move forward, whether we do bricks or a donation wall of some sort. I think there's an opportunity whereby residents could have an opportunity to give and become part of the long-term success of this fire department. And again, anybody out there that wants to purchase it outright for naming rights, the commission is all ears. So, it's putting that out there. We're going to find ways where we could do that, so it becomes a community focus. I know that Glenn's bought into that. Chief Hartman is a strong advocate that whatever we do is going to be a component and a centerpiece of the community and community engagement. So that's all part of what we're doing and will be part of our design.
Okay, anything else before we move on?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay,
Oh, sorry, I didn't mention. Thank you. I thought I did say it, but I guess I didn't. So I appreciate the reminder. The county did approve our dispatch services. So that was a big piece too. Kudos to Glenn and the county for participating. We do have all of our dispatch agreement in place. So we've got that covered. So the county will be doing the dispatching, providing the equipment, maintaining the equipment. That was a big coup for us. And again, the county is showing its continued commitment to partner with us moving forward. So that's great. But we did get the ILA on April 12th. They did approve that, the interlocal agreement.
well done, Glenn. Thank you. Take a little credit. every now
Yeah,
and then. Okay.
So can I ask the question? That was so important. And the CO, PCN, whatever, is so important. Is there anything else that's that important as a gating item that we're now facing? Or are we pretty much over the hump?
We're not over the hump.
You don't want to admit to it. Huh?
No, we are not over the hump.
We don't want to overcommit. So yeah, there are a few issues we need to still have to work through. A major part of it was the communications platform, which was huge because we couldn't have gone forward without that. And if we done it locally, it would have been at least probably close to $1 million to put all that infrastructure in place. So the ILA is a huge coup for the town. We've got a few more smaller issues to work through, but we're trying to get them done in a timely and cost-efficient way.
Yeah. And I would probably, construction, timing, getting what you want, what the community wants at the price you're willing to pay is what we got to really work through next.
That's probably the biggest hump next.
Yeah.
I don't want to mislead anybody. That million was not in the budget. So it's not $1 million savings. We anticipated that we would have that. Okay. Okay, move on.
Maybe we should anticipate more things like that.
Okay, let's move on to item D. That's the discussion of in public participation and planning for the board review process of the proposed ordinance on marine accessories and structures. One quick thing. We received an email suggesting that we refer this, the ladder portion on the addition of the ladders to be 50 feet apart, change the terminology from docks to seawalls, because there are many seawalls without docks. So when there is a seawall without a dock, we still require that there be a ladder.
Absolutely.
So I thought that was a very good suggestion. So down the road, make sure we change the terminology on that. I think Miss Allen is already making the adjustment. Okay. I asked for this to be added because obviously we're going to turn this over to the planning board, but I see this as a very big subject, not just take what was presented by Greg and then just turning it over. Number one, I think it's essential that every planning board member physically go to the canals and see this. They can't sit back, make decisions without physically going and seeing the various canals, the various backyards. And I think they should see it from the water, not from the land. Now, a number of people that are on the planning board have boats, so I'm sure they can volunteer to take a few groups out. Now, got to be careful with the sunshine laws here. So I'm going to turn this over to our esteemed attorney. How do we accomplish this?
Well, I think that Len of our office sent a memo out a couple of days ago. I'm not sure, Marshall, if you've distributed that. Okay, we prepared a memo and thought it was sent out to Marshall. We'll send it out by tomorrow. And if you'd like, Marshall can then forward it to the advisory board members. The long and short of it is that it's frowned upon to have any collective meeting where all the members or more than one member of either the commission, the planning board, go to the site, because then you have potential sunshine law violations. There have been situations where cities have rented a bus, for example, or a van or a boat, and provided a clerk and the meeting notice and make sure the public's available, accessible to, but all those are frowned on and they're all fraught with potential issues. I'm a member of the public who gets seasick, so I can't go on the boat, or I'm a member of the public who, for whatever reason, isn't able to attend. So the safest way to do it, because I understand the importance of being able to visually see it, is individual trips. And it puts a little bit of a burden on the commissioners and on the planning board members to go to see these sites and get a feel for it. Again, I'm sorry I hadn't talked to Marshall ahead of time. It always could be arranged, for example, that a staff member accompanies or takes members out on, I don't want to say supervised trips. Sorry about that, Ingrid.
Well, the other thought was, Chief, we got a boat.
Right.
Want to come up? I mean, what's the feasibility of taking one at a time through the canals?
Oh, of course, in the town, that's not an issue.
Not an issue?
No.
You can accomplish that? That might be the answer, but it would have to
Thanks,
be,
Chief.
Yeah, I mean,
Several.
I guess, but you're public and depends on what the
Well,
attorney.
again, it's not the public then. If it's
No, not the
individual
public.
members.
It would
so
be
you
one
take
of us at a
one at a
time, or
time.
one of the.
Right. You would avoid any
board
sunshine
members
issues
At a time.
if you're
So-
taking one
I see
person
what
at a
you're saying.
time. So you may wind up doing 8 or 10 trips as opposed to one trip where you can get everybody at once. Unfortunately, from a sunshine law standpoint, a lot's safer to take people one at a time. And again, if it's not too much of a burden on staff, you kind of can schedule those and organize when they're going out. And obviously, it depends on availability of the vessel, availability of staff, availability of board members.
Weather.
probably taking,
weather.
what, an hour and a half to get through all of our canals.
That's about right. Also, Mayor, the craft could take one commissioner if he or she wishes to go, plus one board member.
Sure, that's not a problem. Yeah.
So that's
I'm
viable.
talking for
No,
you.
I don't know.
Is that an
I-
issue if a
again,
commissioner
I
goes?
try to be
That's-
very careful about
Yeah.
you mixing and matching. And again, it can always be just individuals. As you said, many of the members have their own boats.
Right.
They could
So
go out,
they're
and
their own thing.
tour themselves at their own leisure while they're out on the canal anyway.
But
They
are you
could-
suggesting it's a problem if a commissioner goes along with a board member?
Yes, I'd rather not. I'd
That
rather
takes care of
not.
that. All right, so it wouldn't be every board member. Some of them have their own boats. They do it at their own leisure.
We can accommodate whatever you need done.
Thank you.
Not gonna be-
Okay, so we
So
have a
thank you, Chief,
solution.
and sorry I didn't talk to you ahead of time.
Okay, Marshall, you comfortable with that?
Sure, that's what I was asking, Chief, is if there's that, but again, residents, if, anybody on the planning board that has a friend that's got a boat, they can always do it that way too. So we'll just make it available. It probably isn't that many trips, to be honest.
Okay. All right, so that was.
I need to see the ocean side just to check it out,
The ocean side.
And while they're out there, do a little fishing. And some, and then some scuba as well. Yeah, okay. The other thing was, obviously, they have to see various boat lifts, so they understand that. The whole concept of the width of these canals, obviously, all the canals aren't of the same width. They need to understand that. I think we need to measure some of these canals. You're shaking your head, Jeff. Good. Okay. Okay, so we need to know the width of all of our canals, obviously, because they're not all 100 yards or 100 feet. And then I think we also have to understand the varying lot sizes that are on the canals. We can't just all of a sudden say 10 feet works. Well, maybe 10 feet works in some places, and maybe other places 15 feet works, or 18 or 20. Maybe on the intercoastal, 25 feet works. But I don't think we need to think about one brush for the entire town. You might also find that maybe we set up some districts differently. And that works also. And I don't know enough about, I used to kayak on the canals, but quite honestly, I don't know if I was on the Russell Street Canal or some other canal, okay? And the lakes might be different. So we may want to set up lakes under different requirements. And I don't know that it has to be in 5-foot increments. It's whatever the research starts to tell us what to do. Okay. I think I covered most of what I wanted to share with everybody. Also, the discussion of how far out the box goes. I mean, I think the box idea is a brilliant approach, but I don't think it's, I guess what I'm saying, it's not one box, one size box. Clearly, 25 feet out is not going to work on a canal that's less than 100 feet. You'll never get a barge through it. So that's why we need to know the size of the width of these different canals. So I think if we can, work with chief and make sure that all of our planning board people get to see all of the canals, they'll be educated enough. At the same time, they'll see the different lifts that are out there. They'll understand what a floating lift is versus, a standard lift and all the variations, and they'll start to understand what the congested canals look like versus the other ones. Okay. So I think a lot of research, you just picked a board that's going to be very busy. Okay. Okay, that's what I had to share on this. And once this is all done, then this planning board is going to take on zoning and density. And that's a much bigger subject than this one even is. So we got a lot of work ahead of us.
Is it possible
You're on, okay.
for us to require even existing seawalls and docks to put ladders in? I don't think that adding a ladder is a major imposition.
My feeling is absolutely, but I think we need to get the feeling of the planning board. While they're out there, they can look and see how many are absent of it.
Yeah.
I don't think we need a specific survey, but if they come back and say, geez, everybody's got them, it's not a problem, then we could insist on it. If they say most don't, then we might want to think about, okay, within the next 12 months, you have to have a ladder. So we need to collect more information,
Right.
but down the road, I'm with you 100%. Yeah.
Because, it's different to require raise your seawall. That's a major
Yeah,
expense. Putting in
ladder's
a
not
ladder
such a big
should
deal.
not be.
Agreed. Yep.
And it may even be that for each individual piece of property where this is yours, your boat goes there, we got to have a ladder there if you're able to put a boat in.
Yep. I'm on the same wavelength you are. John, you were reaching.
Yeah, so I have seen when a resident took me on a tour of the intercoastal waterway that there's some long stretches with no ladders. And that's coming out of the intercoastal. So if
That's a
somebody
problem.
went in, it would be really a problem. So I am of the opinion that they should be installing them as soon as possible, and we should be requiring it like immediately. On sectioning the town based on canals and a coastal and the situation with the widths, measurements, totally agree that we need to have a more flexible approach to this so that 25 feet doesn't work for everybody. That's not good.
Let me interrupt one thing. We've been at 25 and in the last, I don't recall, 3-4 years, whatever, there've only been 3 requests to do something less than 25. So there's not this overdriving demand for it less.
But we also see that the way new people are buying and building these homes, they're going to be bringing in bigger boats. And I could see this becoming more of a problem for sure in the future.
Well, you gotta remember, their desire is to bring in bigger boats, but their neighborhood may not have a desire for bigger boats. So it's hard, but we can't just respond to one person's request. We have to think about the majority of the people's needs as well.
I would think some neighborhoods can't accommodate bigger
Correct.
boats, whether neighbors desire it or don't desire it. If it's not a practical approach, then it makes absolutely no
Now,
sense.
I'm not saying we need to keep the town exactly as it is forever also.
Yeah.
But we have to be cognizant of the broader picture as well.
So, but we do have, I know of at least 2 situations where they started out with a smaller boat and then they went to a bigger boat before they realized that's going to be a problem. And even now in the future, if they go to a bigger boat on some of these small canals, it's not only a problem for them, it's a safety issue as well as for the neighbors. It's a problem. So it may be that for certain canals, that we recommend maximum lengths of boats for the residents in that stretch or that area.
That's a whole nother subject. That's all. I'm also questioning if the 7.5 feet height of the dolphins is the correct height. If you go look at what 7.5 feet is standing on a bulkhead, that's really high. Now, if that's what we want, then that's what we want. But I think we need to consider, is 7.5 the correct height? Because remember, the boat's going to be higher than that.
Mayor?
Yeah.
A couple things if I could. You don't necessarily need a bigger dock when you purchase or move to a larger boat, because a dock allows you access on and off, and a larger boat, you don't have to get onto every piece of footage of that new boat. So that is one consideration. And secondly, you may have a boat the entire, as our code is written now, I believe, Jeff, that you may have a boat the entire length of your property. I'm 118 feet. I can have a 118-foot long boat and still just need a 20-foot dock to access on and off.
Yeah.
I'm just pointing it out. I'm saying there's many variations.
Very key point.
Yes,
you just
sir.
Brought up.
And now I
Because-
will add that there are docks, sir, that have been put in years ago, 10 years ago, that did traverse the whole length of lots. And so those could be looked at as a possibility. Most marine facilities who put in a dock and a seawall will put in a ladder. I'm sure there are some without ladders, but most of them just install it as a routine. So
Sure.
we can.
Because they don't want
take that.
anybody falling in.
Yes,
They
sir.
can't get out. But
And then one final point, some people wish to, particularly some spec homes I've seen, some people wish to build out their backyard into the waterway. And so they extend out that 5 feet permissible or whatever, and then build their yard out and allowing them to have a greater expanse in the back. And so that's called a dock, but it's not really a dock, and then they don't get a boat. So I want to point out that's an option that has been exercised by certain builders to provide more land, but it's not really land, it's extension of the patio over the water. Yes, sir. And just to help out, I did Google photos of the town from above to show you the different, it's a 2-minute thing to show you the
Okay.
different variations.
Before we do that, I
Yes,
just
sir.
want to back up to a comment you made that I thought is really critical.
Yes,
And that is the boat itself can extend to the property line.
correct.
So the issue here is more than just the dock.
Yes, sir. Or the
So-
number of boats. You can have 3 30-foot boats on a 90-foot property.
Yeah, so.
Well, not really. You can't
So
really dock it.
the
that
issue
way.
is, it's just a very big issue, and it's one that I don't think we take
Yes, sir.
lightly here. And so, planning board, I hope you're all watching, and if you're not, ask the planning board members, we should send them a note if you would, ask them to at least watch this portion of the meeting so that they get the input. Okay, thank you.
I'm a little confused. Seems to me that when the people from the north section of town came and complained about the fact that they wanted to leave the 25-foot setback as it is, that their real problem was that they didn't want a boat being turned on closer to their property than 25 feet. Not that the dock was there, because the dock wouldn't interfere with them if there's nothing on the dock.
Well, that was one of the issues. The other was within their sight line. It affected their
So-
views.
Then we shouldn't allow a boat the whole length of the,
No, that's
of the
why I
property.
wanted to build on what Peggy was saying, to make sure everybody understood that point. Yeah. Okay. Back to
I
you.
can whip through these. They're just, it's just interesting to see the different configurations. And I thought these would be available for anyone to view. I think I started north and went south. You can see on the right side, that house sort of holds a little,
You want the pointer?
what am I doing? Show me how to, it's not polite to point. Oh, cool. I didn't know that. Wait. This one? I still don't know where it is. Oh, well, I'll give that a try. No, forget the pointing. Yeah, sure. Then I can concentrate on what I was trying to say. No, not really. I just wanted to show, if you could start back at the top. That's the south end of town, central. I've been on the water 31 years and I've been past these homes like 5,000 times. You kind of get to know them. So back one more. All right. So on the far right, that little center, that home has an extra little notched boat slip where you can,
No.
right, yeah, they're in the middle. And it's got a guest house. It's just interesting how the homes have been built over time and to different configurations. And then that boat there would be very close to the home to its south. And it's like a double dock there. It's very unusual in town. Okay, go ahead and go forward, please. And this is Dr. Johansson. This is your area, I believe. This is Bird Beach to the north end of town, where you can see the lots are fairly consistent in size, whereas the homes are different and varied. It was developed just when I moved here. It was developed and it was very consistent in its engineering. Okay, go ahead, please. To the left there, that is just toward the center of town. And as you can see, there's no dockage and a lot of seawall. Yeah, yes. And then the next slide is the North Lake of Bellito, the island. And you can see there's been a dock established on that corner protruding on the northeast section of that far left side. And you can see that's a very narrow outlet. That is the old Spanish River that circumvents to the right of that slide. And there's actually a catamaran, I think it's called the Betsy G, and it has to back into the canal. It is so large. It has to back into the canal and around the other dockages. If there was a lot more built there, it might be problematic. And then it gets down to the Bellito Bridge. That section is probably one of the more busy yachting mooring areas there. And then the next slide is the South Lake. The town owns these lakes and they are within the confines of the town. That's the South Lake of Bellito. It's larger, expanse, but again, the entrance from the canal and the intercoastal is again quite narrow. Go ahead. Yes, thank you. That's south of that area. And this is a close-up of some of the Russell Drive, Bel Air Drive. The middle one is a close-up of that sort of congested area. 3 or 4 boats did move out already for season, but during season, it's sort of wall-to-wall boats in Bellito, north of the bridge. Okay, go ahead, and Linelda, please. There we go to Bel Air Drive, Russell Drive, the canals. You can see the variation in the widths. And the right side, I believe, is that your complex, Mayor? On the far right from my overhead, I think that's you, right? So you can see where it has at the north end, it's a nice U-shaped area facility with marina space. That north end is, I've ridden in there on a very wide scuba boat. And when other yachts were parking, they used their side thrusters to dock. And it's very, you can correct me because it's your property, but it's very, like you miss each other by inches. Am I right?
Yeah, it is very narrow at points and it's,
Yeah.
when you have a good sized boat dock there, no one can get around it unless they have a very small boat.
Yeah.
So it's a problem.
Correct.
There was an incoming tide that day, and I know we were really hanging on, trying to make sure we had control and didn't want to hit someone. And then the south end of your property, of your marina, is a little wider and perhaps it would better admit some of the yachts. And so that is, go ahead if you want to go forward then, Linelda. Are there any more? That's it. So that gives you an idea. The photos are available if anyone wants to provide them to the planning board or any other population who wants to look at them. It's just helpful to see how many different configurations we have in town.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Any other comments before we move on? Anything?
Yeah, Mayor, I just wanted to make a point, Ingrid Allen, Town Planner, for the record. To Ms. Gossett Seidman's point, I just wanted to clarify because there was a lot of discussion about the setback. So just to clarify for the commission and anybody watching, the current setbacks that are in the code, they're for single-family zoning districts, 25 feet. That applies to accessory marine facilities, specifically docks, right, and boat lifts. So, right, if you have a boat that's just moored along the dock, the 25-foot setback doesn't apply, right? You could, right, go up to the property line. Just want to make sure that was clear. Again, the 25-foot setback that currently exists for single-family zoning districts is specific to a dock or a boat lift. Just wanted to make that clear.
Miss Allen, excuse me, that doesn't apply to a floating dock then, or a personal watercraft, kayak?
Well, floating
Does it-
docks, according to the code, it says that you have to, floating docks have to comply with code. We have a special, an application that's separate for floating type docks. I didn't bring it with me, but per code, they're supposed to comply with the code,
Oh,
depending
that's
on the zoning
interesting.
district. Remember, a lot of, we've seen several floating docks. We had one application come in. It was for a condominium. That particular condominium is zoned multifamily. Multifamily doesn't have any setbacks, any site setbacks. So, that obviously wouldn't apply to a condominium.
I see. Thank
Okay.
you.
I was told that you shouldn't get confused between floating docks and floating boat lifts. We have I actually do have the
Again, this-
application here. It's for the floating dock is the one we have the application.
Floating
for.
vessel platforms.
Floating vessel, I'm sorry, we reworded that, floating vessel platform. So it's a little bit different. We should distinguish between those two.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
As we see, there are many variations of floating this and that, and a lot for us to tackle. Thank you again.
Any further comments?
So just in summary, I just want to make sure we're going to coordinate. One, we're going to create a map of all of our waterways with depths. They'll be approximate within a certain threshold. We can create that through our GIS system. We will provide that out to the planning board and to the town commissioner, so everybody has the same information. From that, then we're going to request and schedule those that have their own boats to go out and take the time to look at all of these situations. We use Commissioner Gossett Seidman's presentation as kind of a guide, like make sure you look at all these different setups and layouts. And then those that don't have a boat or access, Ingrid and Chief Hartman will kind of coordinate getting a chance to pick them up and take them for a ride through these areas so they can see it.
Great.
And then once they get that done, and then we know that they've all seen it, then we're going to send a notice to all waterfront property owners prior to the planning board where they commence the discussion of what we are calling the proposed amendments, not the final language. It's not, there's no language to it, just concepts. They're proposed concepts for amendments, and then that discussion will ensue with the planning board.
Yeah, I would suggest that if they see likeness in an area,
But districts, yes, you're right. The
in let's say the district concept becomes semi-viable, and they may want to invite that neighborhood in to a planning board discussion. So that way they get input from those neighbors, see what they want. Because if they're going to define that district separately, maybe they would be interested in having 15 feet. I'm just making it up as I go along. And there's no reason it can't be. Why are you smiling?
I'm just thinking, I could hear Ingrid with like, this is why we have special exception process in the code. So it's all these unusual situations, just call everything a special exception and require the planning board to review everything uniquely. But we got to look at these things that, because you're right, over
Yep.
time, things are going to change.
Well, I'm thinking about one neighborhood off the top of my head, that's multifamily. So right now there's no setbacks there. Maybe they want a setback.
Sure.
Well, why shouldn't they have one if that's what they want?
Mayor,
Yeah,
I'm wondering, your single-family homes and your development, are those considered a zero lot line or how? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, there's zero with zero setbacks.
there's zero
I see.
setback, zero lot line.
I just remember, thank you.
So, one second, no, unfortunately, we can't do that. Yeah, at the end of the discussion, we can open it up. Okay, so things like that, I think the board ought to bring in the population, get input from them.
Sure.
This is a very important subject, and it's a possibility of a significant changes to what we have done in the past. Okay,
But Peggy, the private homes that are on the water off that canal where we are, the dock literally runs all the way around, and the separations are gates at the property lines. So it's the same dock.
yeah, as it is, that north section, the HOA of the whole development has no ownership or control of that. Only the marina portion, which is the south.
Right.
So that north section is individually owned by those homeowners. Okay. Okay, I'm going to call for public comments now. You have to go up to got to go up there. State your name. That way people that are watching this can hear what the comments
I
are.
got you.
And you're recorded.
Thank you very much. Jason Chudnovsky. I guess a future planning board member
There you
or
go.
existing planning board member. I have a question for you, Marshall. What is the charge to the planning board in this exercise? I understand viewing, I really wasn't clear. I just want, what is the charge to the planning board as they observe what they're going to observe?
So what's slightly unusual is here is we want physical observation of these marine accessory structures that currently exist, because the conversation then is coming to the planning board to discuss the proposed amendments or amendment concepts. We don't have any specific language, but there were 5 amendment components. Am I right, Ingrid? There's 5 general ones: pile height, seawall cap width, accessory setbacks, encroachment depth into the canals. So all of those before the planning board starts jumping into those conversations, the commission is telling me they want to make sure the planning board has physically seen it rather than just pictures. We want the planning board to go out. So when they have that conversation, there might be some more context for those conversations rather than I see it at my condo or I see it in my backyard as this. I don't know what exists up at, say, Bird Beach. Let's go take a look and show you that before we start the conversation, because each is a little bit different. Each is a little bit unique. And if we have that map also to go along so you can see what the width is. So when you go into something and you say a maximum of 25 feet or 25%, whichever is less based on the width, you'll start to have that context in the
Thank you.
conversation. Yeah.
The reason for our request for them to go out to physically see this is the significant variation in residencies that we have here. And we go from a very narrow canal to the wide open intracoastal. So we figured get some eyes on it. Okay. Any comments from anybody else before we move on? Nope. Okay, we'll close public comments and close that subject. Now we're on to new business, page 60. Approve the recommendation of the evaluation committee and authorize staff to conduct negotiations with the first ranked firm, Kaufman Lynn Construction, and establish a contract in accordance with the request for qualifications number 22-001 for the construction manager at risk. Marshall, oh, you're going up there. Okay, it's all yours. Okay,
As much as he wants to, I'm going to have Eric take it. He shepherded the process. So
all right, take it
Hi, everyone.
away.
My name is Eric Marmer. I'm the interim finance director, and I solicited this RFQ number 2022-001 for the construction manager at risk. Just a little bit of background on this. On March 25th, we received 3 proposals, 2 of which were qualified for review. Once we reviewed those, we gave those to selection committee that was comprised of building official Jeff Remus, Glenn Joseph, our consultant, and Chief Hartman. And we came back on April 13th for presentations and interviews with the 2 top ranked firms. And after that, we did our little deliberation. It was really tight between the two very well qualified firms. Ended up picking Kaufman and Lynn because they had a little bit more extensive experience working with fire stations. I think they did 14 fire stations in South Florida and 23 public safety facilities. They're located right up the road on Congress, about 5 to 10 minutes away. And I think they have a staff here in this office around 40 people. And that's it. We're just here asking you to approve the town to negotiate with the top ranked firm, Kaufman and Lynn.
Okay. And you gentlemen are here representing the firm. Want to come up?
Again, just to kind of guide the conversation, today's authorization is allow us to engage in contract negotiations. Again, with the CM at risk, we will eventually work towards a guaranteed maximum price in that conversation. And then that's what, then from there, we drive the value engineering concepts or additions, working through what we have, working with Sam and Joby, our architects from PGAL, that we'll start working that process out. So.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you a little background. Yeah.
John, it's all yours.
Well, first of all, do you have a list of all the things you're going to give us free?
Yes.
Smiles and handshakes.
You might get a blue shirt. That's-
We got plenty of those,
Seem to be
apparently.
plenty supply.
We didn't coordinate well.
So you obviously have a lot of experience and we have a relationship. We've done the homework. What issues do you see? What are the top 3 issues you see in this contract?
I'll turn that over to our operations senior vice president, Ben Baffer.
Yeah, I'm Ben Baffer, Senior Vice President of Kaufman and Lynn. I actually live just up the road in the Delray Beach side of Linton, but I really know the Highland Beach community quite well. The biggest challenge is right now, it's a tough time to build. And it's because there's so much demand in the construction market, and there's so much uncertainty on pricing. And we're having a really, really difficult time with managing price escalation, cost escalation on our construction projects. And just in the time that it takes to get something under contract, we're asking our vendors to hold pricing for several months out, and that's really been problematic. So that is, in my opinion, the number 1 challenge. And number 2 challenge is then once we can lock in this pricing is just availability of the equipment and the materials, especially with some of the specialty equipment that you'll have in your fire station. I found out today we won't be purchasing a new generator, most likely, which is a good thing. But as an example, generators are taking a year to obtain. And then anything that's got circuit boards or computer parts, which is almost everything in your mechanical systems, your electrical systems, switch gears, a lot of the infrastructure parts and pieces, and sometimes the most random things, whether drywall, concrete, and sand and gravel, we'll find that there's a shortage of, or can't get it, or it can't get delivered. So that affects, the number 1 is the cost, and number 2 is the schedule. It's just to be able to get all the parts and pieces we need in time to build something in what's going to be a pretty compressed construction schedule that we're really, and it's not like a 4-year project that we've got the ability to order something and wait for it to come in. We've really got to get things here and get it in hand and get it put together in the building.
So cost, time, and availability, those are typical issues anyway. You're saying.
Well, they're typical issues, but I will tell you, as we stand here in 2022, they're worse than it's ever been, because we don't have any control. It's not like we can, really project and anticipate what those challenges are. It's things that we don't really have control over. So it's hard for us to guarantee to you, on time delivery and under budget delivery, when we really don't have good control. So that's the biggest challenges here locally. Highland Beach, I'd say it's accessibility, right? There's nowhere to park. There's nowhere on site. We're going to have to accommodate your temporary operation of your fire station here on site while we're building, and you don't have a lot of real estate to work with. And so that's, that's a more typical challenge. That's a logistical challenge in terms of scheduling, equipment and materials in and out of the site that, we're accustomed to dealing with. But the parts and material shortages and the cost escalation are not typical. Those are big challenges for 2022.
So on the parking side, we know that, in the past, sometimes we've had to rely on St. Lucie, and you have to work a deal on how much it will cost to have your people park their cars there. That would be ideal, but it's at the same time, it might be expensive. The other side of the coin is to go to Boca, where at the Spanish River Park, they have a large area that's not used very much, directly behind the ranger station. I know that because I bike there often. So I don't know if you can make arrangements where you could park out there and then shuttle people in. But aside from that, I'm looking out over the next 6 months to a year or 2 years, and it seems that everything I'm reading now is that we're careening towards a recession. But the CPI, the inflation indexes, so forth, that we're really going to hit a wall, and it's going to start going down quite a bit. I would have to believe that's going to impact all your plans going forward, especially since we're still a year out, right? I mean, so we've got some time there. But are you factoring in that, and do you see any of that affecting this?
I'm not factoring any of that right now, no. And we are expecting that things will stabilize, that things will get a little more predictable. And if a recession hits, I hate to say that would be a good thing, but if a recession hits and slows things down, that actually would be good for going into a construction project. I have no way to project that, so we are not factoring any of that in at this time. Right now, all we can factor in is the cost that we know today.
But the problem is, when you're making a commitment 6 months out, boy, all of a sudden the price can drop dramatically, and then you're stuck, right?
So going to the pre-construction process. So this is great while you're in a CM at risk project, because that allows for different timelines throughout the design process for us to hit those milestones, right? So we're 30% out, 60% out, 90% out from construction documents. We move along those lines between our pre-construction team, our design coordinator, Jeff Zalkin, who had to step out. We move while we're going through those different milestones to hit those target prices. So if at 60%, we're seeing an increase in drywall, we'll try to make some different value engineering decisions at that point with your designer, and we'll try to get to that price. We talk about it kind of as a menu of options to get to that price. When we get to the guaranteed maximum price, I think we talked about on our schedule sometime towards the end of this year to get towards.
I want to stay away from talking about price.
Right.
Because we're under CCNA, so let's.
Okay, so right. So, but the process of which you guys are going under, the CM at risk process, helps control that timeline and those costs and those different factors in cost.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to mention, thank you for suggesting the parking at Spanish River. We hadn't considered that. We have considered St. Lucie, and I'm actually a parishioner of St. Lucie Catholic Church, and many years ago, Father Horgan, if you know Brian Horgan, he actually was the one who performed my marriage a long time ago when we were almost younger. But I've already spoken to him, and yes, there will be an expense, but I'm going to try to get the best deal that we can for the project and for the city for our temporary parking.
Excellent. No, Father Horgan, we know him very well. He's a great guy. He's a leader in the community. I mean, I can say a lot of things that so positive about him, but at the same time, looking at what your options might be and how much space you might need, and Boca is the only other alternative, I think, that's close enough to impact it. But anyways, okay, very good. Thank you.
All right, since this is really just to approve the negotiation process, I don't have any questions till I see what is negotiated.
To the whites of their
And
eyes.
then I may have some questions, but now No, thank you.
Peg?
I agree with Commissioner David.
Okay,
Thank you very much for your hard work on this. I will add, I love this, the look of this Hollywood station. It's just stunning for this small picture that it is. Great job.
Eric, what specifically did you like about this firm over the others?
Well, as the facilitator of this process, I'm not supposed to have a personal opinion, but I thought they presented themselves really well. Like I said, both firms were more than qualified to handle a job like this. I liked what the selection committee liked, and that they have a history of completing these projects and similar projects, similar places in good time, and did a great job, and they stand behind their work. So,
Okay,
yep.
thank you.
Yep.
Either one of you, and I don't know who would answer this. How many projects are you working on right now?
Total projects or fire stations?
Total.
Total projects that don't have that complete number because we're here ballpark.
I'm out of your office approximately.
Out of
Del Rey office, probably 20 projects ongoing right now.
about 20 projects ongoing and between our private and public sector projects. Currently, right now in pre-construction, we have 3 projects of which are fire stations. So that helps out with our pricing and our ability to get materials.
Would you consider yourselves busy or slow time, fast time?
I think every construction company right now would consider themselves pretty busy.
Okay, so how would you fit us in then if you're that?
We have a
busy?
dedicated team for each specific project. We don't have 40. We might have 40 in the office, but we have 255 employees nationwide between Florida
Well,
and North
we're
Carolina.
concerned about who's down here.
Right. We have a dedicated team for you, Mayor.
I was just talking about
Oh.
maybe how you alluded to we're gonna have a dedicated person always here. I forget his name, but I just talked about that.
So Walter Wharton is our superintendent. He's going to be on site, 7 days a week if we can work 7 days a week. And Matt Hurley, our project manager. Those two will be on site.
What are they doing now?
They are currently finishing up a job up until October.
Where?
They're finishing up a job up until October here in South Florida.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Any other questions? No?
Okay, thank you.
Excuse
Thanks,
me,
fellas.
excuse me, for the record, can you just state your name?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Ryan Ryder, Director of Government Relations.
Thank you.
The job they're finishing up is what kind of a job?
I believe Matt Hurley currently is finishing up a fire station and a multifamily residence in Oakland Park.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay. Anybody have anything else? Okay, we need a motion.
I move we authorize the negotiation with KL Construction RFQ number, I think it's 2022-001 for construction manager at risk.
Okay, I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you both.
Thank you.
On page 222, discussion of fees related to the establishment of fire rescue department, and we have a separate handout on that.
Good afternoon again. Teresa Cuevas, Town Manager's Office. So the item before you now is a discussion on the Fire Rescue Department fees. Included in your packet were some fees from municipalities in Palm Beach County, which our fire consultant Glenn Joseph put together, as well as the fees for EMS transport. So with the handout that was left on the dais, and we also have a presentation, we can go through the discussion of what we would like the fees to be for the town of Highland Beach.
Surprise, surprise. Glenn Joseph, Fire Department Consultant. Yes, so the fees, the board has to adopt transport fees for the COPCN. That is required for the application, and that's why I bring it to you now. What we did with the fire EMS transport fees that we took the fees from both private and public transport agencies from Broward County through Palm Beach County, and we looked at all those transport fees. And we tried to go, it's pretty much middle of the road. So the median is what we took for both. Basic life support involves basic transport where somebody fell, there's no major injury. They're not requiring oxygen or any other support. It's just a transport to the emergency room. That would be around $650. Advanced life support would involve maybe a little bit of oxygen and maybe an EKG just to confirm, and that would run about $685. Advanced life support is more of a cardiac arrest or somebody that requires multiple medications, intravenous lines and such. It goes up a little higher to $770. That is not the highest in the county. The highest is actually Trauma Hawk, and then there's several other departments that are significantly higher than $770. You're looking at this again, the median fee. Mileage is a per mile cost for transport to a facility, and that's around $12, which is what most other areas cost. Some of them are a little bit higher by $12.50 or $13. Where again, $12 is a good number to be at. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I got a comment.
Sure.
When we did this, we obviously took the average, if you take a look at page 225, because we didn't want to overcharge our residents by any means. However, these are current. We won't be effective for 2 years.
Correct.
So I'm suggesting we have to review these again once, just before we become effective, because these rates are going to go up again in 2 years.
Correct. So we're basically going to amend the resolution with the second read of our fire code. This will be an amendment to our existing fee structure that we visit every year in September during budget season. So we are on par that with part of budget, we'll hit it every year and adjust. So,
Perfect.
yeah.
Okay, great.
And that's why we made the fee schedule separate from the ordinance.
Yep.
Allow that kind of
Okay, done.
adjustments.
Great. Anybody have any questions then beyond that? We're all good.
Question.
Whoops,
I
John.
just want to make sure I have it clear in my mind. When you say basic life support, an ambulance goes to a condo, picks up somebody, takes them to the Boca Hospital.
Okay,
So they will be then charged the $650 plus another $120 for the mileage.
$12 a mile, yes.
Other fees, if it's just basic, that's it, right?
That's it.
Now, most of that is covered by, in this community, probably Medicare.
Insurance.
No?
Medicare doesn't cover the whole cost.
They cover
Medicare
the whole cost.
does not cover the whole cost, no. I think it's, my information is dated, it's around $350, and that'll be covered by Medicare. Now, if they have supplemental insurance, the supplemental insurance will then cover the balance of that fee. If they don't have supplemental insurance, then the town will probably be billing them for the balance of that amount.
All right, so.
And we have to bill, according to CMS rules, we have to bill for the balance, or else Medicare considers this to be Medicare fraud, and they will not allow us to bill for the part that we can bill for.
I just want to make sure because, I've had several times people come out, holy man, they're going to charge me $1,000 just to take an ambulance to the hospital. And my only response was, well, wait a minute, that's not just any ambulance. You got to have personnel, you have all the equipment, they have to be ready for whatever might happen or could happen. And also to get you to the right hospital if that's what's needed.
We'll make sure it's in the new rig with
And a new rig.
with the liquid shocks.
With a
Nice
TV.
ride all the way
No
there.
TV.
It's worth every penny.
No TV.
So the average cost, now this is not by Highland Beach numbers. This is an assessment of, that was done about 3 years ago throughout Florida, and especially in this area, in this demographic. The average cost for a rescue truck leaving the fire station, transporting somebody to the emergency room is around $2,000. That's the cost directly to the town. So what you're billing is a fraction of that, probably a quarter of the actual cost of that particular service. When you consider the fire station, the fire truck, fuel, employee expense.
That's what the taxes are for.
That's what the taxes are for. So we're just doing a supplement to ameliorate some of that, so we can keep the millage rate in a place where it's acceptable, but it's nowhere near covering the cost of that particular service.
And I think it's important, and somehow we've got to educate, because when they see that, I think their eyes will light up saying, oh my God, I can't believe it. So I got to avoid taking an ambulance if at all possible. And I think that's what people will think immediately, because we know people who have turned down an ambulance even after they were hurt and the ambulance responded, and I'm not going to take it.
And there are some people like that. If we respond to the scene and we patch you up on the scene and we don't transport you, there's not usually a charge. So there is no charge associated with that. We can't bill you for it.
And we
only
still
bill
incur
when we
the cost.
transport. Huh?
We still incurred the cost of going
And
out
that's
there.
why the
and
average
not
cost is so
transporting.
high, is because we absorb a lot of the cost of people that either don't need it and request it, or they request it and they realize they don't need it, et cetera, and so on. So we're the shock absorber in the system.
Tough situation. Okay.
Okay, anything else?
This is a little off point. Do we have any idea what the percentage is of the times that EMS is called out that they have to transport somebody?
I don't know it
We can get that.
off
It's
the
in the
top of my,
study.
it was in the matrix.
It was in the matrix study, so we could pull that.
Yeah, we
number
could
out.
pull that out. I will not want to venture a guess off the top of my head now. Next.
Continue.
All right, so we added some fees for fire type activities, temporary structures like tents. If you have a party and want a big tent in the front yard or backyard, requires a special inspection. So we require a permit fee of $150. Flow test, you're building a new construction and you have to flow new fire hydrants, test the water output. That requires somebody to come outside, out specifically to do that. And that's about $350, which is basically the cost of the inspector and the equipment to make that happen. Again, we talked about the bonfire fees on the beach in the earlier discussion, $300 for the permit. Again, if you have a large fire on the beach for a party where you have a large gathering, there should be some safety precautions taken for those fires, and that will require a inspection and a permit. Pyrotechnics, fireworks, and those for large parties, again, $250. Fire watch, if the private fire protection systems are out of service, then the building and its residents may be at risk for a catastrophic fire. So it requires somebody to be on site. It doesn't necessarily have to be a firefighter. They could hire a security company, but if they want the fire department to handle it because of accident circumstances, then the cost is what you see, $125 per hour, minimum of 4 hours. And that's, it seems a bit high, but it really is just a way of encouraging people to make sure that their systems are in service and being managed appropriately. So it's discouraging this lackadaisical, negligent malfunctions from no maintenance. Special events for large parties, again, where you have a lot of people in a confined area, we need somebody on site, then these are the costs. A serve card is for if you have a parade and you shut down the A1A and then you have a large number of people on the side of the road, you need a small cart to go back and forth in case there's an emergency. To do that, we'll charge them $40 per hour, and that's for the personnel that's to be on the cart. False alarms, again, it's another way of encouraging people to maintain the systems. You notice that the fees are not kick in until the 4th alarm for a year. So you have three alarms per year for malfunctions, et cetera, and so on. But if the association or the corporate, the commercial entity has not been diligent in getting those systems updated and repaired in a timely manner, then the 4th alarm will be a charge, and it's an escalating charge, again, to encourage compliance, encourage maintenance. Alarm registrations, because we have to monitor those and check annually, is a $25 fee. Renewals and updates, $10. Failure to report, which happens a lot in some areas where they do not report fires or do not report malfunctions because they don't want to be charged or have a fire watch, then that would incur a fee as well, because under state law, you're required to report any malfunction within a timely period of any malfunction of your systems. And again, so those are failure to respond, failure to notify. The failure to respond is on the fire alarm company. If they have malfunction and they were notified and they did not respond, then we will charge the owner $50. We'll pass on to the company that they're contracting with. It should be part of the contract. Any questions on those? You'll notice that we don't have any existing inspections, annual inspections, because it was determined that the return on the for the aggravation of having to pay something every year and the return to the town would be minimal. So it was determined that we would not charge for existing inspections as part of that system.
Oh, that was my earlier comment that I was driving at. That to me is a major change that will have a very positive impact, because I know at Highland Beach Club, that the charge of $350, $400 because of the number of floors is by building.
Correct.
Right? So I got 2 towers, and then I got the townhouses, and I got the clubhouse. I mean, my goodness, you can easily get up to over $1,000 for an inspection where we just walk around with a guy. So
Yes.
now that we're stopping all of that, that is big news, which helps, I think, in understanding that we're doing the right thing by having our own fire department, because clearly those charges by Del Rey has been outrageous.
One of the perks of being self-ruled, you can decide what you want to pay for and you decide what you don't pay for.
Yes, I agree.
Totally.
Any other questions? I think there's one more slide. Yeah, construction. New construction, we have, there is a lot of work that goes into play in establishing and getting a new construction process permitted so they could begin construction. I'm saying it wrong, but you get the idea. We have to review all the plans and make sure all the exits are done correctly. And so we try to get a fee in place ahead of time so that we cover those costs. Because a lot of times you bring a huge plan to the building department for a permit, and it goes to the fire department for review. And they decide, well, we're not going to do this project anymore. And then you spend 16 hours, 8 hours, staff has spent on it, reviewing the plan, and it goes nowhere. So Mr. Remus and myself decided that we're going to make those fees go in ahead of, so there's a submission fee to cover those initial costs. Fire detection and enunciation for each device in new construction, you'll have that as a fee for reviewing the plans. Fixed suppression systems, again, 1 to 20 heads. Again, this is reviewing the plans, and before we get a COPCN, a certificate of occupancy, those fees will go into place. Hazardous materials we talked about earlier, when you have your propane type situation. So you have a hazardous and flammable explosive materials. It's a $35 to do the review, and if that we put into the permits into the ordinance, where we could actually back charge the owner of that particular product for whatever the cost to the town for managing that situation. And work commencing prior to review is 2 times the permit fees. So we'll put in and inspections for new construction is at $125 per hour, minimum of 1 hour per visit. So new construction, because we're looking for errors, omissions, and mistakes, we charge for, but annual inspections for existing occupancies will do an inspection at no cost to the owner or occupant. Questions? Okay, I think that's the end of our presentation.
Well, then I have a question. I'm sorry, I know this is wacky, but in a world of terrorism, you know, if I were a terrorist and I wanted to do something in Highland Beach, I probably want to blow up something. So the fire department doesn't have anything to do with.
Feels good.
You don't have anything to do with bombs. That's strictly police, no?
Yes. No, we.
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Okay. So in Palm Beach County, we have what's called a regional hazmat team, which usually responds with the EOD team, which is the explosive demolitions team.
They have the EOD.
Yeah, so police has the EOD, and we have hazmat. Now, Town of Highland Beach will not have a hazmat beyond just operational things. All the expertise will come from a regional fire response team, which is coming out of Boca, Delray, Palm Beach County, and West Palm Beach. You have the 4 teams in the county. So we already paid for that service through our waste management. There's a fee that's added on to waste management to pay for that service. So we do not have to have a team beyond operations training just to handle the routine stuff. But anything that is above and beyond our capabilities, we just call the county and they'll send people in. They'll send everybody, the command officers, equipment, at least 17 people, and then whatever that cost is, then we get to charge the spiller to deal with that.
Right.
Now with the EOD part of it, if there's a bomb, and I don't know how the chief handles it, But more than likely, what's going to happen is called either his local bomb team or he calls the Palm Beach County, and then they send a hazmat team with them because most bombs are chemicals, so they're able to manage it together. Just joint response.
Okay, and again, just thinking out of the box.
I know you
worst
are.
Case scenario, you know. We're on a flight path for Boca Airport.
Right.
Right? So if we had a crash, that
would be a bad day.
That would be that would ruin your vacation. So everybody gets involved in something like that, right? Everybody.
Right.
But there's nothing specific that we have to do relative to our plan.
Okay, so let me answer your question a different way. We have what's called, well, it's a national response plan. Let me go a little bit more basic than that. And it's designed so that as a situation escalates, you get more resources based on the size of the incident. So if there's something that we can handle in Highland Beach, say a car crash with 4 or 5 employees, we handle it, no problem. If we have go beyond our capabilities, we notify the county's warning point, which is Palm Beach County Department of Emergency Management, and they send additional resources from the surrounding areas. It's under the mutual aid agreement throughout the county. If we exhaust or outstrip everything that Palm Beach County has to offer, then a request goes to the state CERC, and then they send state assets, like in a hurricane situation, that comes in. And if the governor declares a state of emergency, then that triggers the FEMA response for the national response people. So it's a stair step, well thought out, been used over the years, and everybody knows how to activate the system. So if we're overwhelmed, we know where to go to get additional resources, and then it goes up all the way, goes to the federal government, and FEMA shows up with and buys checks for everybody.
So for us anyway, I remember Chief told me, and the issues about, oh, we're not going to have an easy time, and there are major obstacles, it's going to be stopping us cold, the COPCN and mutual aid and resources, all of which it seems we have no problem handling. That we will have that support, which has been some concern. I've had actually a couple of Delray firefighters come up to me and say, oh, you'll never get that kind of response and all that sort of stuff. So again, I don't see any major obstacles here. In fact, if anything, we're covered with the layers of protection and resources that are available from Boca, Delray, the county and FEMA and wherever else we might need, as well as the cooperation that we've just announced today. So we're on track in a positive way. The fees here, I think, are positive, are in line with what's already being charged, and in some cases, less than or is non-existent. Am I reading anything wrong?
No, I think your assessment is exactly right. But especially with the fees and the cooperation among the county, among other departments, is a well-established process. Now, we have what's known as mutual aid, and there's a mutual aid agreements. Within the county, there's a county-wide mutual aid, which you automatically fall into. We'll have to sign it and you'll have to approve it. But that if somebody in the county needs assistance, we'll provide any assistance we have to offer, which means that we may have to call back, whatever, to make that accommodation. But there are other agencies that have one-on-one agreements between the agencies that it will take us some time to make those agreements work because people are still, they don't know where we're going with this yet. So the countywide mutual aids are given, the statewide mutual aids are given, but we have some local agreements that will probably take some time to kind of maneuver through the process.
And the top 3 of those would be?
Top 3 of what?
Local agreements?
I would like to, if I were your fire chief, I would like to have an agreement with, say, Boynton Beach, Delray, and Boca Raton, and Palm Beach County, of course. But if I were the fire chief, it would be nice to have. Will it happen immediately? I don't think so. I think it'll take some time for us to get our feet under us, show our responsibility in the community that we're willing to help. And then that over time will probably raise the level of interest and assurance. But the consequence of that, if I called Boca for assistance, I doubt they will not send the assistance I need. They may send the assistance and say, hey, I'll send you a check with that, an invoice with that, which is reasonable. And then we'd have to deal with it in that way. But they will not say, no, we will not support you because they will say, I'll send you a fire truck, and then the fire truck costs you $500 an hour or whatever, and it will send you an invoice, and that's been done before as well.
When they see what we've done and they gain the confidence is really, I think, what we're
Exactly.
talking about, then it's a different story. We
And
got that
then
right.
we'll address those things when they become necessary.
Very
Okay.
good. Thank you.
I think this fee schedule looks reasonable. And certainly compared to some of the other fees that you showed here that were not reasonable. We're not using this as a money-making process. As a matter of fact, we lose money on it, which is okay, because that's what people's taxes are paying for. So I'm good with this, and also with the understanding that if the situation changes, we can go in and change the fee schedule. But we need something in place right now.
Absolutely.
So I'm good with this.
Peg?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm also very fond of this and think a good amount of work and intuition went into it. So I'm sure it will be reviewed down the road, but I'm good. And thank you for your help.
Okay, we're good.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Greg. I think we move on to. Pardon me?
Minutes.
Yeah, minutes, right, okay. Minutes for the 16th of February and the 1st of March. Anybody have any adjustments to the minutes? I have one on page 233, item B. A. On the motion, it doesn't say that the motion was passed unanimously 4-0. I'm on page 233. Item B, A. Motion was made by David, seconded by Moore. It was passed unanimously 4-0. Doesn't say that.
No, it's eight.
Eight.
Eight. Yeah, it's 8A.
Okay, got it. Anybody have anything else to adjust? No, okay. Have a motion for both of them, please, together.
I move that we accept the draft minutes of commission meetings for February 16th, 2022 and March 1st, 2022 as adjusted.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, move on to commission comments. Back to you, John.
So just 3 or 4 quick comments. One is based on our last conversation about the town signs at the north and south ends of the town. You know, having walked to see them up close and personal, they really are in disrepair. They're falling apart. They need to be replaced. The issue, of course, is with what and how much should we spend and what should they look like? But I don't think there's any question that they have to be replaced. I just wanted to confirm that.
Yep.
For those who might be watching our meeting. Ann Gannon, our famous tax collection agency, put out a document that I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention, especially those who might be watching. This is a great document. It is amazing, the kind of statistics that's available. It tells you what's being spent on everything by line item. It's really well done. So I just wanted to reinforce that you should have gotten it in the mail. If not, you should get it. It's from the tax collector of Palm Beach County. Condos. Some of the concerns I've been hearing since I've been involved in a few condo conversations. Number one has been insurance. Without question, there's a continuing pain with the increase in insurance costs. And again, it's something that hopefully the state will do more with, but it is going to get worse. Secondly, the engineering certification program, as I think Jason had alluded to, it is also on the plate of all these condominiums. And we see the work that's being done out there on some of them for restoration, rehab, but it's a big deal. And it's affecting all of them. What I do worry about is that they only focus on the structural side and not the electrical side. And every time I mention that, I know they go, oh, yeah, kind of thing. Seawalls, docks, boat lifts, that's number 3. Third concern, it keeps coming up. Now, in terms of Commissioner Gossett-Simon, one thing that I learned in a boat lift on the intercoastal, when you have to come into a perpendicular to the A1A, they have to wait a long time for the wake to settle down because they'll lose control of their boat as they try and get into that boat lift. And we do have a perfect example where this particular gentleman that I was following up for when he asked for some help, and unfortunately Jeff's not here, but I'm going to be speaking about Jeff in a moment. He did have a boat. He put it on that boat lift at just in front of Villa Magna. And you can imagine that's right next to the hotel. And it was a real problem getting in. But then he decided to get a bigger boat, which meant he had to put another couple pilings in. Then he had to go through and get approval from the Corps, get a contractor, the Corps, Department of Wildlife, Planning Board, building permit. You know, a year and a half later, it hasn't even started construction yet. So it is a tough deal because there's no way in the world you're going to moor a boat on the intercoastal given the wake problem. The boat will get smashed. So in the process of following up on some of this, I also have to say, working with Jeff Remus and his building department, Carol Holland, I want to give a shout out to. She's done a great job. I mean, when you call and you want to know what's happening on a permit request for a boat lift or, you know, I'm sure just about anything, she can tell you what was submitted, by whom, when, right down to the time of day and where it stands and what you need to do. It was a pleasant working experience, given I've heard, you know, some particular concerns about permits. I don't see that now. I think that the leadership in the building department and the management of the activity there is, as they learn and people adapt to the new software, I think it's running really well. Okay, that's what I had to share with you.
Okay. The electrical is completely separate from the engineering, which is for concrete, basically, and the structure. The cost for, because I know we're going through this now, we're looking at contracts and specs, for the electrical is reasonable. It should be between $10,000 and $15,000 at the most. But what they look at are the main things in the building. They do not generally go into apartments. That's not part of what we are requiring. They don't look at the setups in the apartments. It's for the main common areas of the building or and the garage. So there's that. So it's different, but when you submit, you've got to submit both the engineering and the electrical inspection at the same time.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, I think that we are all experiencing uncertainty. And I don't think that when you come with a contract, you can't predict where it's going to be a month from now, never mind 6 months or a year or 2 years. So they can't really project that there's going to be a recession or not. It could wind up being more expensive as opposed to less. And yes, it takes a long time to get building supplies, and some of those, it's just difficult. And I think that anyone in our community understands that that's what is happening. You're not alone going through this. We are all going through it. The same thing is true with insurance. Everyone's insurance is going up, and what the insurance companies are doing in some cases is they are requiring buildings to get inspections. And if you don't, then your insurance is going to go up even more than it might otherwise. So that's a help in controlling everything, because yeah, the insurance companies don't want to have to pay out for another Surfside. That's it for me.
Thanks, Mayor. Just wanted to add a note on the lakes we viewed earlier in the slideshow. They're in very good shape ecologically. There's quite a bit of seagrass in the lakes, which is conducive to fish habitat, bless you, Mayor, and manatees. And while looking last week, and I will add that we saw an 8-foot barracuda under my dock. One of the largest I've ever seen inland. Did see a shark once years ago, but so we have our wildlife out there. If you're thinking of jumping into the intercoastal to get your hat, who knows? So that's it. Thank you.
Just to follow up on a couple of quick things that you were saying. Insurance is definitely up, obviously all because of what happened, unfortunately, south of us, but several of the insurance companies are gone. They just pulled out of Florida, period. So number one, less companies to insure, therefore rates are up. We all know why the rates are up. But you know, many condos are looking at 40, 50, 60% increases. So it's very, very difficult. Back to your cost on electrical. Our building's half the size of your building, and our cost for the electrical was $6 grand. So your 12 to 14 proves itself out. Absolutely. I had lunch with Bob Weinroth. I just wanted to report on that. We didn't get the dollars for Marine for overtime, only because nobody talked to him about it. So he said, okay, I'll get it. So we'll get a little something anyways. We had a significant discussion about recertification, and he was pushing, and I guess there was a significant discussion up in at the state level about requiring the condominiums to establish reserves. And you all know that I'm very much against requiring condominiums to establish anything or telling condos what to do, period. I'm big on home rule. I think home rule is critical for municipalities, and home rule, I think, is critical all the way down to HOAs and to condos. I don't think we should be telling them, we meaning government at any level, should be telling any level below what they can and should not be doing. So I was explaining to him that through recertification, there's no reason to be requiring condominiums to be doing anything in terms of protecting themselves and saving up money to repair their buildings. As long as they go through recertification and then update it every 7 to 10 years, whatever the requirements are based on the age of their building, you don't have to be requiring them to put money away, because you want them to put money away so they can repair their building. Well, recertification does that, because what you're talking about is making sure the building is safe. Well, as long as the engineer comes in and says you need to fix this, this, and this, or you don't have to do anything, you know the building's safe. So why requiring them to go through reserve studies, which are costly, and requiring them to put money away, which virtually all owners don't want to do, because when they sell their property, they got to leave the money behind. Why require them to do what they don't want to do? Because all you want them to do is make sure the building's safe. So he finally said, oh, I kind of get what you're saying. I said, so my recommendation would be that the county requires the municipalities, the towns and cities have recertification programs, because right now they don't. And the state ended up not doing anything. So take it upon the county, because he's the mayor right now, to require the towns, cities and towns to put in recertification programs. And they don't have to develop them. They can just copy what's out there now. I said, Boca has a recertification program and they have taken on some of the liability. They've put staff on, et cetera, and gotten much deeper into it than we have. We basically administer it, and the liability and responsibility is that of the engineers. And I don't have to go through it. We all know what it is. But I explained the differences to him, and he lives in Boca and he has a better feel of it. And I said, oh, they can copy ours, copy theirs. They can call us. We'd be more than happy to tell them what we've done. I said, there's your answer to the problem. It's very simple. Well, at the end of the lunch, he kind of said, I get what you're saying. I'll talk to my associates. So hopefully they'll move somewhat in that direction. And then what would happen is that not only would the residents in the buildings be safer, but the insurance companies will start seeing Florida towns having buildings that are recertified. And now we'll start seeing the rates becoming more reasonable. Because once they have buildings that are safe and recertified, they know they're not going to come down. And now there's a reason for them not to be having these kind of massive rate increases. So it's a win all the way around if in fact that occurs. So that was the big part of our discussion. Hopefully it goes someplace.
Mayor,
Yeah.
to add, I don't know if you saw the news last week, end of the week, but a building in Tequesta was evacuated due to being considerably in danger to its residents.
There was another one in North Miami that was also, it was only I think it was a 6 or 7 story building. But I mean, I'm glad they're watching them. I'm glad they're looking at them. And the recertification program takes care of that if the other towns and communities will get involved. It's pretty, what was that? Yeah, come on up.
I just have more information because we had a meeting with, at the county last night with the League of Cities for the building recertification program.
And you also had the session this morning, didn't you, with the Boca?
I didn't make that one down in Boca this morning. But the building that was evacuated and declared to be unsafe, I got to see the photos of, that was actually on the Intracoastal. And here's the thing, it was only a 3-story building, so it wouldn't have even qualified to have been inspected under the program, under our program. And a lot of other places are thinking about only doing threshold buildings like we are. But it was good to be there and be singled out as one of 2 communities in the county who has been proactive. So I really put that on the commission here, and thank you, because it's nice to represent a municipality that is forward thinking and does the right thing and takes the time to make this happen when other communities are still sitting back and not wanting to be the bad guy and are waiting for the state or the county to do something. So I appreciate that.
I'm so glad they caught it in that building. I mean, my goodness. Yeah.
And just to clear the record too, we've had a few vocal minority people who said, why are we spending time on this? That the commissioners should not be messing around with this whole thing of configuration, certification rather. The state's going to handle it.
Well,
and they were flat wrong.
There are always some that don't get the message. Okay, thanks, Jeff. So that was the basis of the conversation, and he agreed in home rule. I just think home rule is critical, and it's something that we always need to concentrate on. And I think it goes all the way down to even our smaller communities as well. It's just something we need to stay focused on. That's all. Chief, I know you wanted to bring us up to date on something. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. All righty.
That's a parking ticket? Is that?
Greg, got anything, Greg? No? Okay. Marshall.
I'm glad you've all recognized and have begun to speak on some of the uncertainty with pricings, the future costs. We're gonna, I think, enter into a unique budget cycle this year. So I'm glad you all are prepared to have those conversations because there's going to be some level of uncertainty in the marketplace that drives a lot of the things that we're doing. With that being said, again, the sanitary sewer lining project that's going to hit the streets here in the next day or two. And we will be soliciting bidders to do that project, which is quite extensive. I'm only afraid to see what those prices might look like to do the lining project, but we're going to be moving forward. Again, that's the American Rescue Plan dollars at work that we got in here. And again, it's going to be a big project, and we'll reach out to the community and go over some more of those details. Again, welcome, Jason, to the planning board. I appreciate some of the things you said today. I think, I hope, I was proud today to see some of my employees here stand out and do some things that they may have been uncomfortable with, showing that they're ready to make that step forward and to be the future and the new leaders in town and new workers and new ideas, thoughts and processes in place. So we got a good team here. So I'm excited to move into these periods of uncertainty with you and working through the fire station, some of these other really big lifts that we have coming, and we'll conquer those together. So sanitary sewer is the next big one. We're on track with fire. So all is well.
We really do have big lifts in front of us. Big lifts. Yeah.
Yeah,
I ain't seen nothing yet.
the ulcer is starting to form here. So we'll see how big that thing gets. So.
Okay, anybody have anything else? If not, no? Okay. 4:15, we shall adjourn. Thank you all.